Hello everyone, this is Fantasy Audiobook. Here you find original fan made audio stories.
Demon Hunting World. The first showdown with the Demon King begins. Part 1. It's really hard to make a video nowadays. Looking at the bleak data on the back end, Lin let out a long sigh and sank into his chair. He had been a video blogger for 2.5 times 2.5 years. In the early years, he could make a small profit through the dividends of self-media, but now it was becoming more and more difficult, even to the point where his expenses exceeded his income. Closing the backend and looking at the massive amount of AI videos on Douyin, Lin sighed again. What should I do later? My little body, worn out from staying up late every day, can't handle the intensity of delivering food. Ding. Sky screen system bound. The host can obtain emotion points by broadcasting produced videos to corresponding worlds. Emotion points can be used to increase the system level and unlock more functions. Please note, the videos will have a tangible impact on the target world. Please be aware. System. In all my years, I've actually seen a live system. Lin jumped up from his chair, excitedly threw a few punches, and then successfully threw out his back. Groaning and moaning as he returned to his chair, Lin began to think about his initial goal. Then, his gaze was caught by a trending topic: Demon Slayer, Kimetsu no Yaiba movie, Infinity Castle Arc Part 3, Decisive Battle against Muzan. That's it. Demon Slayer, Kimetsu no Yaiba. The more Lin thought about it, the brighter his eyes became. The characters in Demon Slayer, Kimetsu no Yaiba are all quite pure. Sometimes, the purer a person is, the more emotions they can generate. It just so happened that the final chapter of Demon Slayer, Kimetsu no Yaiba, was recently released in theaters, so posting it to the real world could also ride the wave of popularity. Let's do it. Confirm binding to the Demon Slayer, Kimetsu no Yaiba world. Confirm. Newbie gift pack granted. Selectable broadcast time x1. Usage restriction. At the earliest, 3 years before the main story. At the latest, the end of the finale. 3 years early. Although I can't save more people, Tanjiro's family should be savable. Lin thought to himself. Please select the broadcast time. The earliest possible time. Lin spoke without hesitation. Alright, confirming the broadcast time is June 1912. Please select the broadcast location. Tanjiro's home and the master's courtyard. Lin said. Although broadcasting the scene of Muzan's own death would likely provide a lot of emotion points, Lin hadn't forgotten that the system said the videos would affect the world. If Muzan ends up escaping because of the video, I'll be a sinner for all eternity. If there's a Yorichi special later, I might consider showing it to him. Lin stroked his smooth chin and let out a Gia 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 cackle. In the Demon Slayer, Kimetsu no Yaiba world, in the master's small courtyard, the Hashira were holding a meeting. Suddenly, a light curtain appeared out of thin air in the center of the courtyard. Master, be careful. Facing this unknown novelty, the Hashira's first thought was to protect the master. However, before anyone could react, several words slowly appeared on the massive, shimmering light curtain. Top 10 iconic battles of Demon Slayer, Kimetsu no Yaiba. As everyone knows, Demon Slayer, Kimetsu no Yaiba is most famous for its incredibly brilliant battle scenes. What I'm bringing to you today is, of course, the top 10 iconic battles of Demon Slayer, Kimetsu no Yaiba. To optimize your viewing experience, I've edited out most of the internal monologues and memories interspersed within, leaving only the content directly related to the battles. Next, please join me, dear viewers, in experiencing these exhilarating battles. The first one is, of course, the decisive battle against the Demon King Muzan. After a clear voice finished these words, the scene shifted, and the light curtain displayed a cluster of traditional, antique buildings. A silver-haired man, naked and covered in black markings with teeth all over his limbs, leapt up. He was surrounded by members of the Demon Slayer Corps wearing their uniforms. In the next second, the surrounding Demon Slayer Corps members all collapsed, blood spraying everywhere. The silver-haired man landed, clutching a woman's head in his hand, his tone mocking. Sending food to me from so far away is truly commendable, Ubuyashiki. Despite never having seen him, the Hashira present recognized him almost simultaneously. Muzan. Protect the master. Kocho Shinobu and Tsunemi Shinazugawa drew their blades and stood before the master almost instantly. Following them, the other Hashira also drew their swords, surrounding the light curtain so tightly that not even water could leak through. This is definitely Muzan's blood demon art. Is he provoking the master? Uzui Tengen looked at the screen, a cold glint in his eyes. Calm down, children. Kagaya Ubuyashiki, within the protective circle, watched the fallen Demon Slayer Corps members. His fists were tightly clenched, yet his tone remained calm. In my view, this seems more like a preview of the future. Doesn't this prove that my children found Muzan in the future and organized an effective offensive? Watching his children being slaughtered, Kagaya Ubuyashiki was equally grief-stricken. But what calmed him down was realizing that many of these Demon Slayer Corps members were unfamiliar faces. He could never forget the name of every one of his beloved children. So, is this a divine revelation? God heard his tragic wish and thus descended the light curtain to present the future to him. While soothing the Hashira, Kagaya noticed the head in Muzan's hand. Those eyes. Is this a demon who rebelled? How many tragedies has Muzan caused? Kagaya Ubuyashiki's heart throbbed with pain every time he thought of this. If possible, I really want to end Muzan in my own era. He truly didn't want to see any more tragedies happen. As if confirming Kagaya Ubuyashiki's words, the image on the light curtain changed again. After Muzan crushed the head in his hand, two people appeared in the distance, Giyu Tomioka, who had just arrived, and a red-haired boy. Instantly, everyone's gaze gathered on Giyu Tomioka. Seeing two Giyus at the same time was truly a novel experience. Kocho Shinobu, having lowered her guard, scanned between the Giyu on the light curtain and the real Giyu, even pursing her lips into a smile. Giyu Tomioka was somewhat uncomfortable being the center of attention. He looked around and spoke slowly. So, where are all of you? Hearing these words full of mockery, Tsunemi Shinazugawa instantly flared up, and his movement to sheath his sword came to a sudden halt. Don't look down on people, you brat. The number of demons this lord has killed will definitely not be fewer than yours. Besides Tsunemi, the other Hashira also showed unpleasant expressions. A question mark slowly appeared over Giyu Tomioka's head. He was just worried if everyone was fighting difficult battles elsewhere, why was everyone reacting so strongly? Kagaya Ubuyashiki stared at the two battle-scarred figures on the screen. This red-haired boy gave him a very different feeling. Deep down, he had a premonition. This boy is the beginning and the end of everything. Don't be in a hurry, everyone be patient. I think everything we want to know might be answered within the light curtain. Meanwhile, on the other side, Tanjiro, Kai, and Nezuko were originally busy with housework. They were startled by the sudden appearance of the light curtain and the voice. Then, they saw the scene of corpses strewn everywhere on the light curtain. As ordinary charcoal burners, how could they have ever seen such a sight? Kai and Nezuko's faces immediately turned pale. Tanjiro, who wanted to check on his mother and sister, saw himself with a bandage on his head, standing before the terrifying silver-haired man alongside a black-haired man wearing a two-toned haori. And the moment he saw that silver-haired man, he gripped the sword in his hand, his face filled with bone-deep hatred. Tanjiro. Who is this person? Is this me? Is this kind of fierce expression something that can actually appear on my own face? Tanjiro, the little son who was always kind to others, thought thoughtfully. Is that Big Brother? Why is Big Brother here? Nezuko wobbled over. She saw her big brother confronting the terrifying silver-haired man, her face full of worry. Aside from having a hard head and being a bit strong, Big Brother doesn't have any other special talents. How can he fight this monster who killed dozens of people in a single breath? Tanjiro, calm down. The black-haired man beside Tanjiro was clearly even more furious, yet he still said this to him. The silver-haired man straightened his body and drew out his voice with some impatience. You demon slayers are just too annoying. Whenever you open your mouths, without exception, it's always that same line about wanting to avenge your dead parents, children, brothers, or sisters. Since you've already been lucky enough to keep your lives, isn't that enough? What did he just hear? Is this something a human being can say? Tanjiro finally understood why he would have such an expression. He slowly turned his head to look at his mother and Nezuko, who were equally shocked. After hearing these words, he didn't even dare to think too deeply about why he was there. What the hell is this beast saying? Tsunemi Shinazugawa's veins popped out. The culprit behind the loss of his family was right before his eyes. Not only did he show no remorse, but he was even spouting nonsense in front of the Demon Slayer Corps members. It wasn't just Shinazugawa, everyone present had a deep, blood-soaked vendetta against Muzan. Kocho Shinobu could not maintain that fake smile at all. She stared fixedly at Muzan in the screen, her teeth grinding together with a creaking sound. Gyume Himahima lowered his head, the movement of his hands rolling the prayer beads involuntarily speeding up. For some reason, even though he was blind, he could see the contents of the light curtain, but seeing Muzan's hideous state still made his heart fill with endless rage. Although Muichiro Tokido didn't remember anything, his instincts still reacted to the person in front of him. It was disgust, an extreme, deep-seated hatred. What on earth are you blathering about? The boy whom Giyu called Tanjiro said with a blank face. Wouldn't it be better to just consider being killed by me as an unfortunate natural disaster? Earthquakes, volcanoes, no matter how many people these natural disasters kill, no one attempts to take revenge on them. The dead cannot return to life, and most people just find a job and live on peacefully. Why are you the only ones who refuse to do that? Muzan sighed, looking quite distressed. I've thought about it for a long time and finally reached a conclusion. That is, you demon slayers are all abnormal. I've had enough of you abnormal humans, so tonight, let me wipe you all out at once. Muzan's nature had always been this way, Kagaya Ubuyashiki knew this clearly. But his trampling over the resolve of these children, this behavior, caused the rage in his heart to rise to the extreme. Muzan, you really are a monster. Although everyone wanted to rush into the screen immediately and hack Muzan to pieces, in the master's courtyard, everyone desperately suppressed their own rage. Master, please arrange all the recent demon-slaying missions to us. The air pressure around Tsunemi Shinazugawa dropped to a terrifying level. There was no doubt that if a demon appeared beside him now, it would be instantly torn apart by his rage. And beside Shinazugawa, the other Hashira simultaneously bowed to the master. And the meaning they were expressing was also very clear. I understand. Kagaya Ubuyashiki nodded. Although every child's face showed exhaustion, this kind of extreme rage could not be vented in any other way but by killing demons. Muzan, you really are a creature that should not exist in this world. After Tanjiro said this with a cold face, Muzan Kibutsuji made the first move. His hands, like two retractable blades, swept toward the two of them with unstoppable speed and power. Ah! Watching this terrifying attack rush straight at Tanjiro, Nezuko became completely tense. Then, she saw Tanjiro dodge, avoiding all the attacks, and quickly approach the monster that her big brother called Muzan. Big brother has become so strong. Just as this thought flashed through Nezuko's mind, she saw Muzan wave his hand, and immediately after, blood gushed from Tanjiro's right eye. Nezuko wanted to scream, but found she couldn't make a sound. Big brother will die. Big brother will die here. Someone, save Big brother. Seeing Muzan's next strike already upon him, Nezuko screamed instinctively in her heart. Seeing the attack coming, the black-haired man pulled Tanjiro away from Muzan with extreme speed. Outside the screen, Tanjiro subconsciously breathed a sigh of relief and touched his own arm. So, I had already started trembling unconsciously. Then, what kind of rage could make me ignore such a large gap in strength, just to land a single slash on the monster in front of me? Was everything he wanted to protect destroyed by this monster? But fortunately, they are still by his side now, and he still has the chance to continue protecting them. Are you trying to stall until the moment the sun rises? Can you really do it with just the three of you, Hashira? The Hashira wearing the striped Haori and the other female Hashira have already been killed by my subordinates, haven't they? Listening to this clear indication, everyone's gaze gathered on Obanai Iguro and Kocho Shinobu. There might be more than one location where battles are happening at the same time. You have already done very well. Upon learning of her own death in battle, Kocho Shinobu suddenly felt a bit dazed. Before I died, did I succeed in avenging my sister? What happened to Kanao? Right, Muzan just said there were only 3 Hashira left. 3 Hashira. The Hashira present subconsciously looked at their companions around them. Excluding Giyu Tomioka, who was right there in the screen, and Obanai Iguro and Kocho Shinobu, who had just been declared dead, among the others, were there only 2 survivors. So who survived? No, that's not important at all. Whether I, before dying, killed as many demons as possible, and whether I created as many opportunities as possible for my companions, that is what's most critical. How can I find out the situation on the other battlefields? Sanemi Shinazugawa scratched his hair in frustration. Behind the crowd, Giyu's lips were pressed tightly together. It's me again. It's the most useless me who survived to the end again. Look at my pathetic appearance in the screen, holding a broken sword, fleeing in a panic with my juniors. If it were them, who are more capable than me, they surely could have done better than me. You walked here carrying everyone's hope. Behind Giyu, Kagaya Ubuyashiki spoke softly. If you fail this time, absorb the experience and fight again. If you die this time, pass the information to your juniors. Isn't that what everyone has always done? You in the screen are standing right in front of Muzan, isn't that the best proof? TCH. Watching Giyu being consoled by the master, Sanemi Shinazugawa turned his head away impatiently. To have the chance to take revenge on the culprit behind everything was, in his eyes, nothing short of exhilarating. And yet this guy, who had gained an advantage but was acting like he'd been wronged, actually dared to show such a reluctant face. It was truly irritating. Within the light curtain, with no time for grief, Tanjiro and Giyu were still desperately dealing with Muzan's attacks. Tanjiro, blinded in one eye, was clearly moving much slower. In a moment of distraction, Tanjiro crashed into a wall, and Muzan's attack was already right before his eyes. Tanjiro. Big brother. Nezuko and the Giyu Tomioka within the light screen cried out simultaneously. As for Kai, ever since she saw Tanjiro appear on the light screen, no matter how pale her face became, her eyes never strayed for even a second. Seeing Tanjiro in danger now, she gripped her sleeves tightly, as if every cell in her body was exerting force. This was her eldest son, her greatest pride. No matter what, she had to witness everything. That boy can't dodge it. Looking at Tomioka's position, there's no way he can make it in time to save him. Although this boy isn't a Hashira, his strength is nothing to scoff at. If given enough time, he would certainly have become one of the Hashira. After presupposing themselves as dead men, the Hashira were actually not as high-strung as they were at the beginning, not daring to miss a single frame. Now, they could even offer a couple of comments from a bizarre godlike perspective. Stop it right now. A girl with pink and green hair, wearing a snow-white haori, shouted as she dropped from the roof, striking Muzan fiercely with a whip-like Nichiren sword. On the other side, Obanai Iguro rescued Tanjiro with lightning speed. Everyone's gaze turned toward Obanai Iguro once again. What's up with this Muzan? Why is he spreading false information? Kanroji. Among the crowd, only Kyojuro Rengoku voiced his confusion. Rengoku. Do you know this girl? Uzui Tengen asked. The image of a girl with an innocent and lively smile, sharing Sakura mochi with him, surfaced in Kyojuro Rengoku's mind, and he nodded to Uzui Tengen. This child has just become my Suguko. She is a determined girl and full of spirit, I admire her greatly. Uzui Tengen stroked his chin. Now that's flashy. It seems the female Hashira Muzan mentioned earlier was her. Rengoku really is impressive, not only possessing outstanding strength himself but also training such an excellent Suguko. The moment Kanroji Mitsuri appeared, Obanai Iguro seemed as if he had been struck by something, freezing for an instant. In a corner where no one could see, the tips of his ears quietly turned red. Why are they still here when they've already been killed? Nakame. What are you doing? Muzan lost his composure and roared at the sky. Nakame. It's a name I've never heard before. Is she also an upper moon one? What is her ability? Kagaya Ubuyashiki began to analyze subconsciously. What am I doing? Manipulating this woman's vision, of course. The scene shifted to a demon in the form of a young boy controlling a female demon playing a biwa. The boy demon's eyes were pitch black, and tears were streaming down his face. Muzan, you have committed the gravest sin in this world, and that is taking Lady Tamayo away from me. Go to hell with your regrets. As the boy finished speaking, the surrounding buildings began to shake violently, and the floor started rising rapidly. Wah! Yushiro-san. Kanroji Mitsuri stumbled, while Muzan, no longer caring about the surrounding Hashira, struggled with Yushiro for control over Nakame. This scene left all the Hashira present dumbfounded. A demon, helping the Demon Slayer Corps against Muzan. I must be going crazy. Tsunemi Shinazugawa muttered to himself in disbelief. He really didn't want to believe his eyes, yet all signs indicated that this demon fighting Muzan was on their side. His worldview was collapsing and being reconstructed. This boy should be with the female demon who just died at Muzan's hands. Kagaya Ubuyashiki said softly. Tamayo. What a beautiful name. Although it's unclear what happened before, this Lady Tamayo must have exerted a powerful restraint on Muzan. Without them, our suppression of Muzan probably wouldn't have gone so smoothly. It seems necessary to consider contacting them ahead of time. This doesn't make sense. Given Muzan's level of cruelty, why would he care so much about this subordinate of his? Rengoku frowned. I think it's because of the location. Kocho Shinobu spoke up. Judging by these buildings that change in irrational ways, this place is likely created by a demon's blood demon art. There is no sun here, making it Muzan's safest location, so he probably wouldn't want to give it up easily. That's not up to him. Obanai Iguro spoke from the side. Indeed, after all, Yushiro is not alone. As Muzan and Yushiro were in the heat of battle, Giyu Tomioka and Obanai Iguro attacked Muzan from his sides simultaneously. You eyesore pests. Even if Muzan could regenerate, he definitely didn't want to be a sitting duck getting slashed repeatedly by Nichiren's swords. While Muzan was blocking, Yushiro took the opportunity to manipulate Nakame and move the floor from under Muzan's feet. The sudden feeling of weightlessness panicked Muzan slightly. If he weren't on level ground, he wouldn't be able to devote his full energy to fighting for control over Nakame. I can't let this continue. Muzan made a silent decision in his heart. He reached out and squeezed his hand forcefully. Bang! Nakim's head exploded instantly. Oh no! The hearts of everyone in front of the light screen sank. The caster of the blood demon art has been killed. The entire building is about to collapse. What will happen to the Demon Slayer Corps members in the fortress? Rise! Yushiro let out an angry roar, and the floor beneath everyone's feet began to climb again at an irrational speed. Bang! The bright moonlight shone down upon everyone once again. Our people have all returned to the surface. Kyojuro Rengoku's eyes lit up. Well done, Yushiro. Next, we just need to stall Muzan, and that'll be it. Although it remained a difficult task, it also signaled that they had taken another step forward. Kocho Shinobu watched everything silently, the extreme anger in her heart seeming to be slightly extinguished. Even though they are demons, they are truly risking their lives to help humans. Sister, is this the future you wanted to see? Inside Tanjiro's home. Everything that had happened, from Tanjiro being in danger to everyone returning to the surface, was straining the nerves of the three. Is this a battle that will happen in our world? Is this a battle that brother will go through? Nezuko murmured. Tanjiro could naturally see how thrilling and dangerous the battle in the light curtain was. However, everyone was united, trying every possible way to deal with Muzan, and no one ever thought of giving up on a teammate. Although he had never met them, he already felt a strong sense of camaraderie toward the people in the light curtain. Meanwhile, Kai took a long look at Tanjiro beside her, who was staring intently at the light curtain. To push Tanjiro to this extent, perhaps in the future, we are all no longer around. As a mother, I really don't want to see my child suffer like this. Your mother will respect your decision, but no matter what, I hope you can live on healthily and happily. The Kasugai crow, delivering the master's message, cried out loudly. 1.5 hours until sunrise. Upon hearing the Kasugai crow's voice, Tanjiro staggered to his feet and began to search for Muzan's location using his keen sense of smell. Brother. Nezuko really wanted to tell the Tanjiro in the images to take a rest and not push himself so hard. She knew her brother very well and could see clearly that the scarred Tanjiro in the images had actually reached his limit. But looking at her brother's eyes, she couldn't bring herself to say it. Bang! 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 Muzan was already beyond furious. Black marks covered his entire body, making him look far more hideous and terrifying than when he first appeared. The 9 bone whips behind him flailed about, acting like a demolition crew, completely destroying the surrounding buildings and leaving behind a vast expanse of ruins. Hey, you maggots, do you want to trap me here until sunrise? Then by all means, give it a try. The massive noise instantly drew everyone's attention. In the next second, 3 Hashira, Obanai Iguro, Gyu Tomioka, and Kanroji Mitsuri, charged at Muzan from different directions simultaneously. Serpent breathing, 3rd form. Love breathing, 2nd form. Water breathing, 8th form. Gyu Tomioka and Kanroji Mitsuri blocked Muzan's attacks, while Obanai Iguro took the opportunity to slash at Muzan's neck. It's working. Everyone outside the light curtain grew excited. Although they all knew that decapitation wouldn't cause substantial damage to Muzan, as long as they could injure him and hack him to pieces, it would surely weaken his abilities to some extent. Their goal was simply to buy time. As long as they could stall him, it would be a victory. Under the hopeful gazes of everyone, the blade sliced into Muzan's neck. Why? I clearly hit him, but there's no wound. Kanroji Mitsuri cried out in shock. Although the blade had cut into Muzan's neck, the wound regenerated at an incredible speed. How can this be? Kocho Shinobu covered her mouth. That fooled Muzan. Why? Could they not even land an effective attack on him? Like this, how could they last for another hour and a half? How could they keep Muzan here? Through the screen, everyone felt a deep sense of despair. But there was more to be distressed about. Too close. Muichiro Tokido spoke up. This distance was just like when Tanjiro attacked Muzan earlier. Only, back then, Tanjiro had Gyu Tomioka to save him. What should the 3 of them do now? If they died here, could the remaining 2 unknown Hashira really hold out for another hour and a half? Was the opportunity everyone had fought so hard for going to end here? Bang! What streaked across the sky was the light of blood. Members of the Demon Slayer Corps of various ranks, wearing the same uniform, rushed in from all directions. They formed a wall of flesh with their own bodies, slowing down Muzan's attacks and pushing the 3 away from his reach. They themselves, however, were sliced in half at the waist by Muzan's 9 flailing bone whips. Kanroji Mitsuri instinctively tried to help up the member who had pushed her down, only to find that he was unexpectedly light. Looking down, she saw that only his upper body remained. The dying member in front of Obanai Iguro looked at the Hashira he had saved and gave a weak smile. Please, keep going. You are our hope. When Gyu Tomioka was tackled to the ground, his mind went blank for a moment. When he finally managed to stand up and saw the member who had been cut in half to protect him, before he could even speak, another person collapsed before him, spraying blood. At this moment, Gyu Tomioka's reactions inside and outside the light curtain were synchronized. The Gyu Tomioka outside the screen had completely projected himself into the scene. His head was buzzing, but he could faintly hear someone shouting. Quick! Everyone, go! Charge to the front. We must risk everything to protect the Hashira. Protect all the swordsmen who can fight Muzan. If it weren't for the Hashira, we would have died to the demons' claws long ago. Don't be afraid, everyone. Give it everything you've got against him. Watching the ordinary Demon Slayer Corps members go to their deaths wave after wave, just to buy a moment's respite for the Hashira, everyone stood there dazed and speechless. Kocho Shinobu covered her mouth, her face already covered in tears. Although there were many new faces, Kocho Shinobu also recognized many people. They were all members she had carefully tended to in the Butterfly Mansion. Now, like moths to a flame, they shouted as they embraced their end. Guillaume Himahima was chanting under his breath, but 2 streaks of tears had already fallen. Ordinary Demon Slayer Corps members couldn't possibly withstand a single blow from Muzan. They understood that those fighting Muzan were already at their wits' end. The Hashira needed rest, but Muzan wouldn't stop. And all these ordinary people could do was fill the gap with their lives. They had all sorts of regrets, but they all shared the same hatred and hope. Perhaps through their daily training, they realized they were just ordinary people, acknowledging the fact that they could never match the Hashira even in a lifetime. But they still persevered. Just so one less person would suffer from the demons' persecution, and one less family would be torn apart. They couldn't participate in a battle of this level, but at this moment, they wanted to make even a tiny contribution. Even if they were to die, they wanted to die on the path of revenge. This was their simplest yet most fervent hope. Kagaya Ubuyashiki remained silent. My children, every single one of them is a hero. Extreme sorrow was accompanied by extreme rage. Why? Why can I only watch all this from here? I want to go and kill this beast too. Tsunemi Shinazugawa's eyes were bloodshot, and his aura became increasingly terrifying. But here, there was nothing he could do. What on earth is the future me doing? Inside the light curtain, the future Tsunemi Shinazugawa did not appear on the battlefield as his past self had wished. Instead, it was that monster who broke the silence. What are you grieving for? Isn't it a blessing to die instantly? After all, even if you don't die on the spot, anyone wounded by me is doomed to die anyway. How can he say such cold-blooded things? He is a monster. Nezuko was already streaming with tears from witnessing that blood-soaked rescue. Upon hearing Muzan say this, her anger was instantly ignited. Meanwhile, Kai stared at a small corner of the screen with a pale face. Although she was moved by everyone's willingness to die, what she cared about most was her own child. Ever since she caught a faint glimpse of that fiery red hair in the light curtain, her gaze had never left her son. At this moment, watching Tanjiro, who had suddenly collapsed on the ground in the distance on the screen for unknown reasons, she prayed incessantly in her heart. I have mixed my own blood into my attacks. A large amount of blood won't turn people into demons, but instead will frantically destroy their cells, causing immense pain before ultimately leading to death. Look, isn't there a perfect example right here? As Muzan finished speaking, the camera suddenly zoomed in, and Tanjiro's appearance suddenly appeared on the screen. At this moment, he was lying on his back in the ruins, and his previously attacked right eye had undergone some unknown distortion. His entire right eye seemed to have suddenly developed a huge cyst looming on his face, looking hideous and terrifying. His left eye and mouth were wide open, blood splattered from his mouth. It was impossible to tell if he was alive or dead. Tanjiro Kamado is dead. Hope was completely shattered. The moment she heard these words, Kai's body instantly tensed up. An unparalleled hatred erupted in her eyes. She gripped the long scissors beside her tightly, wishing she could rush into the light curtain right now to strike Muzan a fierce blow. However, she was just a spectator, she could do nothing. At this moment, Kai suddenly understood the Tanjiro on the screen. If she watched her beloved son collapse before her eyes, even if there was only the slightest chance, she would try to take revenge. Saying that those who are left behind should forget their hatred and live happily is simply empty talk. All she wanted to do was to avenge her son. Brother. How could this be? Nezuko hadn't yet recovered from the blood-soaked rescue when she heard the terrible news of her brother's death. At this moment, incredibly complex emotions were intertwined in her heart. She wanted to grieve, and she also wanted to rage. But these emotions were forcefully stifled within her chest. In her short dozen or so years of life, she had never experienced such cold-blooded emotions. She wanted to tear the person before her into pieces and make him never be able to reincarnate. If it weren't for this person, there wouldn't be so many tragedies. He deserves to die. Nezuko turned her head and looked at her brother beside her, who was still safe and sound. For some reason, an endless sense of grievance suddenly welled up. Tanjiro looked at Nezuko, that obedient, sensible, and silently devoted sister. As the eldest sister in the family, just like Tanjiro, she had long considered herself a young head of the household, shouldering the responsibility of taking care of her younger siblings. However, in front of Tanjiro, she was just his little sister. It had been a long time since Nezuko had shown such a fragile expression. Come here, Nezuko. Tanjiro opened his arms towards the tearful Nezuko. Seeing my own death, brother should clearly be the one who is most devastated, yet I am still being so pathetic. Thinking this in her heart, Nezuko still honestly threw herself into her brother's arms. In an instant, the emotions clogging her chest seemed to find an outlet for release. Nezuko wailed against Tanjiro's chest. Looking at the two children in front of her, Kai's angry heart also seemed to be soothed. She stepped forward, embraced her two children, and finally, tears fell as well. In the light curtain, the battle continued. While speaking, Muzan's attacks did not stop. Now, only 3 of the Hashira remained on the scene, entangled in battle with Muzan. Hold him off. As long as we hold out until dawn, it will be our victory. They have changed their strategic approach. Listening to Obanai Iguro's inner thoughts, the Hashira understood. However, was Muzan someone who could be easily held off by those 3 severely injured Hashira? Tomioka's sword is still broken. I'm afraid it won't be that easy for him to block all the attacks. The situation is looking bad. Kyojuro Rengoku said with a grave expression. Sure enough, no sooner had his words fallen than Giyu in the scene was struck. Mr. Tomioka. Kocho Shinobu looked at the screen with some reluctance. She had just witnessed so many familiar people die, she really didn't want to see another companion fall. It seems this isn't enough to instantly kill a Slayer Mark swordsman. Muzan commented expressionlessly, but the movements in his hands accelerated. Slayer Mark swordsman. Kagaya Ubuyashiki noticed this term. As the leader, he naturally knew the legend of the Slayer Mark swordsman, but the lineage of Slayer Mark swordsmen had been broken for too long. He had naturally noticed the Slayer marks on everyone's faces, but it wasn't until Muzan's assertion just now that he was completely certain. He hadn't expected that all of his children had awakened the Slayer mark. Snap! Kanroji Mitsuri was struck. Muzan seemed to realize that Kanroji Mitsuri was the weakest point among the 3 and began to focus his attacks on her. In an instant, Kanroji was covered in wounds. And Muzan's final blow caused her to lose her balance and fall to the ground. Kanroji. Obanai Iguro momentarily lost his composure and wanted to rush over to rescue her, but he was blocked by Muzan again. Don't worry about me. Protect yourselves. Please. Facing the unavoidable attack, Kanroji Mitsuri's face turned pale, but she firmly declared her own death sentence. In this intense situation, every one of the Hashira is a force to stop Muzan. If they worsen their injuries because they try to save me, not only would I be letting them down, but I would also be letting down the comrades who sacrificed themselves to save us earlier. I don't want to hold anyone back anymore. In front of the screen, listening to Kanroji's inner thoughts, Obanai Iguro's face turned pale. From the first moment he saw this girl, Obanai Iguro's heart began to race. He had once thought that as a product born of blood and sin, his life would only be about atonement. But he seemed to have fallen in love with this girl at first sight. However, now, he was about to watch helplessly as this girl died under Muzan's attack right here. Even if he were on the scene, he would be unable to save her. After all, his future self was right there. A deep sense of powerlessness suddenly welled up in Obanai Iguro's heart. Did his future self feel the same way as his current self? No, he would only be more desperate, more powerless, and hate himself even more than his current self. On the screen, Obanai Iguro's eyes were bursting with rage, yet he was unable to block that sharp blade before his beloved. Time seemed to be stretched infinitely. Clatter, 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 bang. The reassuring sound of iron chains rang out. Mr. Himahima is here. The same thought flashed through everyone's minds simultaneously. In the next second, the sharp blade attacking Mitsuri Kanroji was knocked away by a massive iron ball. Clang! With a surge of strength from Gyome Himahima, the iron ball protecting Mitsuri Kanroji returned to his hand, and he swung it with whistle-inducing force. My apologies for being late. Is it the demon slayer who defeated Kokushibo? Ah, this is. Kocho Shinobu suddenly noticed something and let out a cry of surprise. While Muzan's full attention was on Gyome Himahima, a person suddenly appeared behind him. Then, a sharp blade pierced through Muzan's forehead and sliced downward with force, splitting him in two. It was Sanemi Shinazugawa, his face pale and his eyes devoid of light. Outside the light curtain, Sanemi Shinazugawa froze. He felt an immense fury toward Muzan, a rage so intense he wanted to tear him into 10,000 pieces. But how could he have such a dead, despondent expression? He remembered that look. The last time he had worn such an expression was the day his family was killed by a demon. A sudden sense of panic welled up within Sanemi Shinazugawa. Inside the light curtain, Muzan's regeneration quickly healed his injuries, but Sanemi Shinazugawa's assault was not over yet. A bottle of alcohol shattered against Muzan's body. Biting down on his Nichiren sword, Sanemi Shinazugawa tossed a fire starter onto Muzan. With a whoosh, flames rapidly spread across Muzan's entire body. Though the damage the flames caused Muzan was limited, for some reason, the burning Muzan appeared exceptionally enraged. You demon slayers! Using such petty tricks again. Sanemi Shinazugawa stared at Muzan, the hollowness in his eyes gradually transforming into unparalleled fury. You pile of human trash, go to hell. Where is the breathing styles? Muzan can regenerate, so just cut him a few more times. As long as you cut fast enough, how can you not wear him down? Go for it. What's the use of such trivial attacks against Muzan? In front of the master, Sanemi Shinazugawa might have been able to restrain himself regarding others' performances. But when it came to scolding his future self, he was not polite at all. He could only use this method to mask the unease in his heart. Just what important person had his future self lost now? The battle on the main front was in full swing, but only Kai and Nezuko noticed that in a corner, the black-haired youth who had first appeared with Tanjiro had called over another youth wearing a Demon Slayer Corps uniform to carry away the Tanjiro who had been declared dead. Could there still be a turning point? Although looking at her son's tragic state, Kai knew the hope was slim, she couldn't help but feel a flicker of expectation in her heart. What if? What if her son could still be saved? Watching her son gradually disappear from her sight, Kai finally suppressed her anxious feelings and turned her attention back to the main battlefield. At this moment, the enraged Muzan was swinging his bone whips. His surroundings had become a no-man's land, Anyone who approached would die. All the Hashira were struggling to hold their ground amidst wave after wave of attacks. His speed has increased. I can't see the direction of the attacks at all. Not only the people inside the light curtain, but the audience was also dazzled and overwhelmed. Tsunemi Shinazugawa clenched his fists. After watching from the sidelines for a while, he fully realized that his future self was more than just a little bit stronger than he was now. Even so, could they not shake Muzan in the slightest? Killing intent surfaced in Tsunemi Shinazugawa's heart. Once the content of the light curtain finished playing, he would go back and train even harder. As long as it didn't kill him, he would train himself to death. His current training was far from enough. He had to become stronger, even stronger. Suddenly, Mitsuri Kanroji in the light curtain let out a cry of pain. She had been hit by Muzan's attack. That's not right. Looking at that flashy movement trajectory, Kanroji clearly dodged Muzan's attack with style. What happened? Uzui Tengen had been keeping his eyes on this girl who looked fragile but didn't hesitate when it came to fighting. Therefore, he was the first to notice this unnatural occurrence. Is there something else we haven't noticed? It's Muzan's blood. Gyu Tomioka had been watching his own actions, so he had noticed his figure in the light curtain telling the members to take Tanjiro away, and he quickly thought of this point. Muzan's blood is destroying Kanroji's cells. That cunning Muzan. Seeing his Suguko injured like this, Kyojuro Rengoku's expression also became exceptionally grim. To the side, hearing Gyu Tomioka's words, Muichiro Tokido thought of something. Mitsuri Kanroji wasn't the only one hit by Muzan earlier. Almost all the Hashira had been wounded by Muzan. Then the upcoming battle. Obanai Iguro's face didn't look good either. Ever since seeing Mitsuri Kanroji get injured, Obanai Iguro's expression had been extremely tense. Only after seeing the Obanai Iguro in the light curtain arrive in time to catch Kanroji did he secretly breathe a sigh of relief. At least he's somewhat useful. Obanai Iguro thought to himself. Naturally, Muzan didn't want to let pass this opportunity to completely kill off the Demon Slayer Corps members. Seeing Obanai Iguro catch Mitsuri Kanroji, clearly unable to dodge, several bone whips lashed out mercilessly. Clang! Gyu Tomioka, Tsunemi Shinazugawa, and Gyome Himahima appeared in front of the two simultaneously, blocking the wave of attacks. By the time Muzan looked again, the two were already nowhere to be seen. In an alleyway, Obanai Iguro handed Mitsuri Kanroji over to the Demon Slayer Corps members who had come to assist. Please treat her wounds immediately. Take her to find the member with slanted eyes who has this paper slip. His name is Yushiro. It's that demon youth. Is he a doctor? Kyojuro Rengoku's eyes lit up. That youth likely has a flashy support type ability. Uzui Tengen said thoughtfully. Just how much had Yushiro helped them in this battle? That paper slip seems to be carried by the Kasugai Crow. Is that the youth's blood demon art? Kocho Shinobu noticed a different detail. The current Kasugai Crows didn't have such a thing on them. What exactly was this ability? At this stage of the battle, anyone who could help kill Muzan was an ally. Regarding Yushiro, who had been helping the Demon Slayer Corps, the prejudice in Kocho Shinobu's heart was quietly diminishing without her realizing it. He who acts with justice finds much support, while he who acts against it finds little. Muzan had done so many insane things that even the demons under him were betraying him. Truly, the heavens are just, and retribution is certain. Wait, I can still fight. Don't leave me here. I'll find a way not to hold everyone back. Mitsuri Kanroji, who had been handed over to the Demon Slayer Corps members, was unwilling to leave just like that. Don't be like this, you've already done very well. Obanai Iguro leaned down and spoke in a gentle tone he had never used before. I haven't helped everyone yet. If I leave like this, I won't be able to rest in peace even in death. Mitsuri Kanroji's words made everyone's heart ache. Although she didn't say it out loud, everyone understood. She couldn't accept herself like this. She couldn't accept leaving the battlefield now after so many members had just sacrificed themselves to save her. If it weren't for saving her, those people wouldn't have had to die. She was saved, but she hadn't played a corresponding role. She was blaming herself. But just as Obanai Iguro said, it wasn't her fault. Mitsuri Kanroji was among the first to engage in battle with Muzan. To have held on until now, she had already done very well. But the only person who cannot forgive themselves is oneself. Mitsuri Kanroji could not forgive herself. Looking at Kanroji before him, Obanai Iguro felt a bit uneasy. But he also understood that on the main battlefield, his comrades were fighting a bloody battle. They still needed him there. As expected, his counterpart within the light curtain made the same choice. Obanai Iguro hardened his heart and gave up on persuasion. I'll leave her to you. After speaking to the responding Demon Slayer Corps members, Obanai Iguro stood up and left. Don't go. Please. Mitsuri Kanroji broke free from the Demon Slayer Corps members and fell to the ground. However, Obanai Iguro did not look back. Iguro-san. I want to go too. Don't leave me behind. Iguro-san. Calls came from behind him one after another, but Obanai Iguro's pace did not falter in the slightest. Outside the light curtain, Obanai Iguro felt as if a knife were twisting in his heart. But he understood that his current self would have made the same choice. My beloved girl, if possible, how I wish you could have been born into a world without demons and lived a happy life. As he was about to move away from the alley, Obanai Iguro heard Mitsuri Kanroji cry out once more. Whatever you do, don't die. I don't want to see anyone else die ever again. Seeing Mitsuri Kanroji covered in blood and hearing her sorrowful plea, Kai's tears, which had just stopped, began to flow again. This girl clearly didn't look much older than her own daughter, yet she had experienced so much life and death. If her parents saw her in this state, how heartbroken they would be. Thinking of this, she couldn't help but look at her daughter beside her. Nezuko's eyes were red. She was holding Tanjiro's hand and watching everything happening in the light curtain with him in suspense. No matter what, her children were still safely by her side. For a mother, that was enough. However, she still prayed silently in her heart. Please, let all of this come to an end. Let this demon be destroyed today. On the main battlefield, Obanai Iguro's return did not ease the situation much. Several people gradually realized that something was wrong with their bodies. But no matter what, they were still fighting there. Clap. While cutting off Muzan's arm, Obanai Iguro kicked the severed limb away. It works. Kyojuro Rengoku watched as Muzan's regeneration was delayed for a moment. His eyes couldn't help but brighten, though they quickly returned to a heavy expression. Now, every second was crucial, and such attacks did indeed take effect. But how many more times could they launch such attacks? He could already see that the bodies of the 4 people in the light curtain had begun to mutate because of Muzan's cells. Giyu Tomioka's hand and Tsunemi Shinazugawa's left face both showed obvious mutations, very similar to Tanjiro's right eye from before. In this state, could they hold out until sunrise? As if responding to their conjectures, when Muzan's next attack arrived, Giyu Tomioka's sword slipped from his hand. Seeing his sword fly out, Giyu Tomioka was stunned for a moment. However, Muzan's attack would not stop, and the bone whip reached his face in an instant. Seeing the Giyu Tomioka inside the light curtain dare to daze off, outside the light curtain, Tsunemi Shinazugawa couldn't take it anymore. What are you doing? Aren't you usually so arrogant? You can't even handle this level. Move. Don't make me look down on you. True to his status as the #1 Tomioka hater, even his words of concern were laced with barbs. And inside the light curtain, Tsunemi Shinazugawa's words were very simple and clear. If you daze off again, I'll kill you myself. After blocking the attack for Giyu Tomioka, Tsunemi Shinazugawa turned back and roared. Only when he saw Giyu Tomioka pick up his sword again to continue the fight did the Tsunemi Shinazugawa outside the screen secretly breathe a sigh of relief. He completely failed to notice that Gyu Tomioka had looked up at him at some point, a light flickering in his eyes that might have caused Tsunemi to pick a fight with him if he had seen it. How troublesome, but it doesn't matter. There's still 1 hour and 14 minutes until sunrise. I estimate that in about 5 more minutes, their physical bodies will be destroyed by my cells. How laughable, this is what fragile humans are. Muzin's inner thoughts rang out in everyone's minds outside the light curtain once again. Only 16 minutes had passed. Everyone found it hard to believe. Even though they constantly hoped in their hearts for time to flow faster, just a little faster. However, time is such a cruel thing, it never shifts according to human will. Only 5 minutes left, was there really no other way? Tsunemi Shinazugawa stared fixedly at the screen. At this moment, he wished he could enter the light curtain and fight alongside his future self. Kill him. Even if my legs are broken, I still have hands. Even if my hands are broken, I still have a mouth. Even if only a head remains, I absolutely, definitely must kill him. Meanwhile, Guillaume Himahima prayed silently in his heart. If the heavens are merciful, please let a miracle descend. The sacrifices of the Demon Slayer Corps members must not be in vain. PFF'd. The 3 people in the light curtain spat out a mouthful of blood almost simultaneously. Their bodies had reached their limit. Was there really no other way? At this critical juncture, a cat carrying a box suddenly appeared above the battlefield without any warning. Before it appeared, no one had noticed it. Everyone maintained a high level of vigilance toward this suddenly appearing creature, and Muzin was no exception. With a snap, a bone whip swung toward it. However, the cat had no intention of dodging at all. Click. The box on the cat's back popped open automatically, and 4 vials of medicine inside were launched out, accurately striking the 4 pillars who were still fighting. Then, the cat was decapitated by Muzin's attack. Faced with the sudden arrival of the medicine, the 4 were as if facing a formidable enemy, but the moment the medicine entered their bodies, they discovered to their surprise that the mutations caused by Muzin's blood had stopped and were even beginning to reverse bit by bit. Outside the light curtain, Kai suddenly sat up straight. There is such a medicine. There is a medicine that can reverse mutations. So, Tanjiro, her son, who had just been rescued. Is he still alive? Someone has developed a relevant serum. Kocho Shinobu spoke, sounding surprised. She had a guess in her heart about who this person might be. To understand demons so well, to understand Muzin so well, and to create this kind of antidote specifically targeting Muzin. It must have been done by those 2 demons. These 2 demons have saved the Demon Slayer Corps once again. Was it Yushiro and Tamayo? At the same time, Kocho Shinobu also noticed that on the cat falling from the sky in the light curtain, there was also that special talisman. Tamayo, it's Tamayo again. How did you even manage to create a serum that can stop the destruction of cells in the human body? Why must you, woman, always stand in my way? Even though you're already dead, you're still working against me. Watching the 4 Hashira before him gradually recover their health, his cells no longer having any effect, Muzin was enraged. Tamayo. This name rang out in everyone's ears once again. Was the woman who died at the very beginning actually such a formidable figure? If it weren't for her, it's impossible to imagine what this battle would have become. Having recovered their health, the group rallied again and continued to entangle with Muzin in battle. Stop making futile struggles. Just give up the ghost already, you walking corpses. After another fierce attack from Muzin, for some reason, Obanai Iguro's movements suddenly slowed down. Obanai. Tsunemi Shinazugawa, who was constantly keeping an eye on his teammates, immediately shouted. However, under Muzin's wide-range attacks, everyone was currently in a position where they could not immediately rescue the other. Gyu Tomioka rushed desperately toward Obanai Iguro's direction, but arrived just as the attack did. The attack collided with his slash, kicking up a large amount of dust. Obanai. Did I not make it in time? Gyu Tomioka's inner voice reached everyone's ears. Hearing this, everyone felt a chill in their hearts. Although they hadn't imagined who would survive the battle against Muzan, actually seeing a comrade fall on the battlefield was still something they couldn't accept. Wait, look. What's that in the sky? Kyojuro Rengoku was the first to notice something was wrong. As the smoke cleared, Obanai Iguro appeared in midair in a posture that defied all reason. How did he get up there? Uzui Tengen was stunned. He had seen the situation just now very clearly. Even though he was a ninja by trade, he absolutely could not have dodged that attack. However, in his current posture, wasn't he a sitting duck in midair? Muzan clearly thought of this as well. Another whip lashed out. In full view of everyone, Obanai Iguro shifted to the right in midair along a trajectory that defied all logic. Is this right? Is this a movement a human can make? There must be other children here. After confirming that Obanai Iguro had dodged this crisis, Kagaya Ubuyashiki said with a smile. Although we can't see them, they must be there. Whatever can make people disappear, it is definitely not a sword technique. Could this still be that boy's blood demon art? Sure enough, once everyone realized there were invisible members present, the bizarre situation on the battlefield suddenly became clear in their eyes. Having seen that the 5 Hashira mentioned by Muzan had all appeared, they had already prepared themselves for the fact that there would be no more reinforcements. The appearance of these invisible members at this moment made them feel a strange sense of pleasant surprise. For some unknown reason, Muzan's right arm suddenly fell off. Not long after it had been reattached, the left arm fell off as well. Although Muzan is scum, he is not stupid. The problem that Kagaya Ubuyashiki could notice, he also noticed after suffering twice. There are 3 people. After this thought flashed through Muzan's mind, Kagaya Ubuyashiki sighed softly. The surviving Hashira had already appeared. If the invisible assistants were ordinary members, given Muzan's strength, the moment he noticed them, the invisible ones would have nowhere to hide. Sure enough, with just one strike, the 3 little ones were all revealed. A boy with yellow hair, a boy wearing a boar's head mask, and one more. Kanao. Seeing her younger sister appear here, Kocho Shinobu was both surprised and delighted. Her sister was still alive. But facing Muzan, how long could they hold out? Kocho, is this the one from your family? Obanai Iguro pointed to the classic butterfly hair accessory that had been passed down. Yes. Kocho Shinobu nodded. When she looked at the light curtain again, watching that stubborn figure, her eyes held a hint of apology. I am truly sorry, Kanao. To think I let you experience the pain of losing a loved one again. I really am an incompetent sister. Looking at Kanao in the light curtain, and thinking about Kocho Shinobu's experience of becoming a Hashira, Tsunemi Shinazugawa uncharacteristically remained silent. Only, his hand gripping his Nichiren sword tightened even more. So, the purpose of this talisman is invisibility. Muichiro Tokido spoke. Although he was always quiet, he had been watching everything happening on the battlefield with great attention. Like Kocho Shinobu, he had also noticed the talisman. Kagaya Ubuyashiki shook his head. I think it is more than that. I suspect this should be the blood demon art of that demon boy named Yushiro. Perhaps he can imbue his own abilities onto the talisman and share them with others. Currently, the only ability we can confirm is invisibility. As for the others, Kagaya Ubuyashiki looked at the ubiquitous Kasugai crows in the sky, and the talismans hanging on each of them, and spoke softly. I guess at least one more should be visual sharing. After all, this level of battlefield information transmission is definitely not just simple word of mouth. How amazing. The Hashira present looked at Kagaya Ubuyashiki with sincere awe in their eyes. To have deduced all this just from these pieces of information, he truly is worthy of being Oyakata-sama. It hurts. I've really had enough. The yellow-haired boy was shedding tears while roaring fiercely. However, his dodging steps and attacking movements did not stop for a second. This strange sense of disconnection left Nezuko dumbfounded. What a truly miraculous person. How can someone be both fierce and cowardly at the same time? You octopus maggot, how long are you going to keep showing off? Go back to your cesspit. And that boar-headed boy, although injured, was not polite in his speech at all. Octopus maggot. Hearing this miraculous address, Nezuko burst out into a giggle, and the tension brought about by the previous battle seemed to fade away somewhat. These children looked about the same age as Tanjiro. Kai turned her head to look at Tanjiro, who was intently watching the battle, and then looked at the three people fighting hard in the light curtain. What lively children they are. Listening to them speak, for some reason, she felt they were no different from the mischievous boys next door. Kai thought, lost in her thoughts. Then, she noticed the girl. What a beautiful and heroic girl. If only there could be less pain and more happiness in those eyes, how wonderful that would be. After three little ones joined, they didn't have any critical impact on the battle, but their cheerful energy truly caught Muzan's attention. However, just as Muzan's attention was drawn away by these two noisy people, at some point, Obanai Iguro attacked from the side with his crimson Nichiren sword, severing Muzan's arm. Muzan didn't care at first. Perhaps because his arms had been cut off enough times today that one more didn't matter. However, this time, when he activated his regeneration, he felt something was clearly wrong. His regeneration speed has slowed down. Kyojuro Rengoku suddenly said. If he could achieve instant regeneration before, and it took 1 second for a limb kicked away by Obanai Iguro to regrow. Then now, it takes him a full 10 seconds to regenerate an arm. There's a chance. In the light curtain, Tsunemi Shinazugawa's eyes lit up. As expected, even someone as strong as Muzan will have their regeneration slowed down when hit by a bright red Nichiren sword. Bright red Nichiren sword. Everyone heard this new term. Then, their gazes simultaneously turned toward Obanai Iguro's fiery red blade. Presumably, the bright red Nichiren sword Shinazugawa mentioned refers to this situation. But they only saw Obanai Iguro's sword suddenly turn red and didn't notice exactly what he had done. At that time, it sounded like the bright red Nichiren sword was an ability everyone knew about. And its power was indeed witnessed by everyone. So now the key question is, how exactly did Obanai Iguro's sword suddenly turn red? And the Hashira in the light curtain didn't keep the audience waiting for long. While Obanai Iguro, with his bright red Nichiren sword, and three little ones attracted Muzan's attention, Gyome Himehime slammed his axe-like Nichiren sword and flail together heavily. Then, under everyone's astonished gazes, his Nichiren sword and flail slowly turned red from the point of impact, gradually extending to the entire blade. Then, Gyome Himehime charged toward Muzan, wielding the reddened flail and Nichiren sword. Can the sword turn red just by attacking? Can that increase the sword's lethality? Kyojuro Rengoku was somewhat in disbelief. He looked down at the Nichiren sword at his waist, eager to try it out. Meanwhile, Gyome Himehime took out his own Nichiren sword. Can he make his Nichiren sword turn red now? In the crowd, Obanai Iguro looked down at his Nichiren sword. He hadn't noticed when his future self in the light curtain had subjected the sword to a violent impact. It was as if the sword in his hand had turned red in an instant. So, could there be more than one way to activate this so-called bright red Nichiren sword? However, the method Mr. Himehime used was indeed the most straightforward and brute force one. Tomioka. Take this. At the same time Gyome Himehime used his flail to crush Muzan's entire left side, Tsunemi Shinazugawa charged toward Gyu Tomioka with his Nichiren sword raised. Clang! The Nichiren swords clashed, letting out a sharp ringing sound. Sparks flew from the blades, which quickly turned red as well. So, is swinging it with enough force all it takes? With two examples appearing in succession, Tsunemi Shinazugawa was really eager to try. He drew his sword and looked toward Gyu Tomioka, attempting to replicate the scene in the light curtain. However, seeing his actions, Gyu Tomioka just shook his head, having no intention of fighting. Too weak. Hey, what do you mean by that, brat? Tsunemi Shinazugawa instantly flared up, And not far away, Obanai Iguro also cast an unfriendly gaze toward Gyu Tomioka. Kocho Shinobu sighed. All right, Mr. Shinazugawa, Mr. Tomioka, please stop arguing. If you want to experiment, wait until the content in the light curtain finishes playing. Don't you want to know how this battle ends? If it weren't for being in front of the master. Tsunemi Shinazugawa gave Gyu Tomioka a fierce glare and resentfully sheathed his sword. You brat, you really are annoying. 1 hour and 3 minutes until sunrise. Unknowingly, another 10 minutes had quietly passed. Those who had activated their bright red Nichiren swords took a moment during the battle to pick up invisibility talismans from the ground, then vanished one by one before Muzan. The continuous injuries appearing on Muzan's body made him increasingly irritable. A swarm of flies, stop playing these little tricks. However, while he could see through 3 little ones' invisibility, the Hashira's invisibility wasn't so easy. At the same time, they continued to land attacks on Muzan that were difficult to heal, which greatly distracted his attention. At this rate, maybe they really can hold out until sunrise. Everyone's eyes lit up. Suddenly, Guillaume Himahima shouted. Iguro. Observe Muzan's body carefully. Do you see anything different? Then, he shouted to the surrounding Hashira. Everyone, try it. See if you can see through his body. See through the body. How could it be possible to see through a person's body with just the naked eye? Yet everyone understood that Guillaume Himahima was definitely not someone who spoke without reason. Perhaps he really had entered an unknown realm. Then, they saw in the light curtain that for an instant, Muzan's body became transparent. I actually saw it. Obanai Iguro was dumbfounded. No, it's not what we saw. It's what the light curtain let us see, Mr. Himahima's perspective. Kocho Shinobu shook her head. To think the naked eye could reach such a level. Our future selves actually possess so many abilities. There was a hint of longing in Kyojuro Rengoku's tone. What a truly flamboyant move. Uzui Tengen nodded. Did you notice Muzan's internal organs? He has multiple brains and hearts. Though it was only for a split second, Kocho Shinobu still caught it. Is this why he can't be killed? Tisk, he really is troublesome. Obanai Iguro frowned in disgust as he recalled Muzan's appearance that had just flashed by. If we can use that see-through ability continuously and attack these vital points simultaneously, could we deal massive damage to Muzan? Nemu Amida Butsu. Guillaume Himahima said. However, before they could act, Muzan had reached his limit. He didn't want to waste any more time with these demon slayers. Bang! The 9 bone whips behind Muzan's back exerted force simultaneously, slamming heavily onto the ground, causing the earth to shake and crack. In an instant, smoke filled the air, obscuring everyone's vision. Everyone, what happened? Everyone's hearts tightened. However, as the smoke gradually cleared, only one figure remained on the battlefield. It was Muzan. Where are the others? The Hashira who were just fighting hard and the active members have all disappeared from the main battlefield. As the smoke cleared completely, the tragic scene revealed before them sent a chill through everyone's hearts. Guillaume Himahima lay on the ground, his left leg gone without a trace, leaving only a shocking pool of blood. Gyu Tomioka was buried by falling rocks, his right hand that held the sword already severed from his body. Tsunemi Shinazugawa was sent flying into the sky, embedded in a high-rise building. Meanwhile, Obanai Iguro and 2 other young men lay on the ground, their fates unknown. The only one still conscious was Kanao, her face covered in blood as she slumped on the ground. What just happened? This turn of events happened so quickly that no one knew why the situation had suddenly deteriorated like this. Muzan quickly noticed this survivor. He approached with a cold expression, looking down at Kanao with an icy gaze. Move. Kanao. Don't just stand there. Outside the light curtain, Kocho Shinobu grew anxious. However, she understood that no matter how anxious she was, it wouldn't help. With the Hashira all down, Kanao alone could not possibly stand against Muzan. Was everything going to end here? Even even though they had held Muzan off for so long. At this moment, even Kagaya Ubuyashiki could not remain calm. How frustrating. Was the Demon Slayer Corps going to meet its end like this? Did they still fail to do it? Sun breathing, beneficent radiance. At this critical juncture, a familiar yet strange voice rang in the ears of the Hashira. Kai and Nezuko also stood up in excitement. They knew this voice all too well. Brother. It's brother. The moment she heard Tanjiro's voice, Nezuko's tears burst forth. Brother really is okay. Thank goodness. I'm so glad brother is safe. All the tension and worry from this period poured out at once. Although she didn't know what the future would hold, at this moment, her brother was still standing there. Although Kai had expected it, seeing Tanjiro's return in person made her unable to hold back her tears as well. This is truly wonderful. Seeing his mother and sister beside him weeping repeatedly because of his appearance in the light curtain, Tanjiro felt both moved and guilty. However, at this moment, he couldn't say any words of comfort. Because if it were him, he would feel the same way. Therefore, he just silently squeezed his mother's and sister's hands. The suddenly appearing Tanjiro severed Muzan's arm once again with a single move, while simultaneously saving Kanao with a Princess Carry and bringing her to the Kakushi in the distance. Tanjiro. Having escaped death, Kanao could no longer hold back the tears in her eyes. Yeah. Sorry, I'm late. With just one sentence, Kai heard that something was wrong. Tanjiro's voice was too steady and calm. Hadn't her son just gone to be treated for his injuries? Why did he suddenly seem like a different person upon his return? Kai wasn't the only one who realized something was off about Tanjiro. Hey, isn't the aura of this boy named Tanjiro a bit off? Obanai Iguro frowned as he looked at the boy before him. Although they hadn't met many times and he couldn't say exactly what had changed, he remembered that Tanjiro wasn't like this just now. His intuition was very sharp. His gaze, his footwork, and his breathing have all changed. Compared to before, he has become much stronger. Kyojuro Rengoku said. Tch. Tsunemi Shinazugawa said nothing, his eyes fixed intently on Tanjiro. After setting Kanao down, Tanjiro turned and walked toward Muzan. With every step, murderous intent seemed to rise from him. Wow, what a flamboyant display! Uzui Tengen exclaimed from the bottom of his heart. What an ugly appearance. This way, one can't even tell who the demon is, Tanjiro Kamado. In the light curtain, however, Muzan mocked him, saying the exact opposite of what Uzui Tengen had. Tanjiro, however, was not provoked by Muzan's words. He looked up and spoke in a tone that was calm to the point of indifference. Let's end this, Muzan. With that, he gripped his Nichiren sword and charged at Muzan. Sun breathing, waltz. Sun breathing, waltz flash. Tanjiro attacked without a moment's pause. The forms he's using are more fluid and natural. Muichiro Tokido's eyes were fixed on Tanjiro, not relaxing for a second. If the earlier Tanjiro using those forms was like a child struggling to fit into an adult's shoes, stumbling along, then now, he was like someone wearing perfectly fitting shoes, running freely through the mountains. In just half an hour, he had actually improved this much. Was he really just being treated for injuries? Sun breathing. Is that the legendary original breathing style? Has this boy actually mastered the legendary original breathing style? Kocho Shinobu looked at Tanjiro, her heart filled with shock and uncertainty. The original breathing style. Muichiro Tokido also looked over. Sun breathing has been lost for a long time. Kagaya Ubuyashiki noticed Muichiro Tokido's gaze. He intended to remain calm, but as he spoke, he realized his voice was actually trembling. The Hashira all instinctively looked toward their master. Legend has it that sun breathing is the origin of all breathing styles. However, because this style places extreme demands on the user's physique, most people could not withstand it. Thus, other swordsmen derived different breathing styles based on sun breathing. As for sun breathing, the origin, it was completely lost during the Demon Slayer Corp's struggle against Muzan. To think that Tanjiro has actually received the inheritance of sun breathing. This is the Hinokami Kagura father used to dance. This is actually a sword technique. Tanjiro instinctively looked at Kai, only to find that she was also wearing a look of surprise. Feeling her son's gaze, Kai looked at Tanjiro and shook her head with a bitter smile. As the practitioner, Tanjiro naturally recognized the Hinokami Kagura quickly. Before his father passed away, he had inherited it move by move. Who would have thought it held such power? Perhaps his father or an ancestor was once a member of the Demon Slayer Corps. And later secretly adapted this sword technique into a ritual fire god dance to pass it down. No wonder father insisted that I must inherit it. Tanjiro's mind began to race with possibilities. The battle between Tanjiro and Muzan continued, and Tanjiro's inner thoughts reached everyone's ears. As I thought, by using the 12 forms of sun breathing in succession, they form a cycle. This is likely what is known as the 13th form. Can I do it? Can my life hold out until the moment the sun rises? Can I really achieve what Mr. Yorichi couldn't do back then? Cast aside all idle thoughts and set my heart ablaze. All I must do now is swing my sword. In contrast to Tanjiro's calm inner voice, Muzan appeared much less composed. Fooled ghost. For some reason, after clashing with Tanjiro, Muzan suddenly blurted out these words. Although the sentence had no context or specific referent. For some reason, that name inexplicably rose in everyone's hearts at this moment. It was the Mr. Yorichi Tanjiro had mentioned. Sun breathing, fire wheel. Sun breathing, burning bone, summer sun. Tanjiro used the forms of sun breathing one by one. While using these sword techniques, his body was also constantly operating under overload. Still far from it, compared to that man. Muzan's inner voice rang out. That man's attacks were never this soft and weak. Is this all you've got? But that's only natural. After all, that man is a monster seen only once in 10,000 years. While Muzan in the light curtain repeatedly emphasized, that man, over and over again, everyone developed a strong curiosity about that man. So, who exactly was this man who made Muzan so wary? Guillaume Himahima had a faint suspicion in his heart. Perhaps it was one of the first-generation breathing swordsmen who had once driven Muzan into a corner. There's nothing to worry about anymore, kill him. As this thought crossed Muzan's mind, the weight of his attacks increased, attempting to put Tanjiro to death. However, even with great difficulty, Tanjiro still dragged his broken body and managed to dodge this menacing strike. Muzan looked down at his hands, showing an expression of disbelief. Muzan's attacks have slowed down. Muichiro Tokido stared at the screen and gave a serious assessment. If it were my current self, although it would take some effort, there should be no problem dodging this strike if I focused on evasion. But, this was Muzan's killing move. I clearly saw murderous intent in Muzan's eyes just now. At the start of the battle, Muzan used an arrogant attitude to leave the Hashira covered in wounds. I don't feel that my current self is stronger than the other Hashira in the light curtain. Our attacks shouldn't be enough to cause such significant damage to Muzan. Could it be a side effect of the move Muzan just used? Obanai Iguro speculated. At the very beginning, Muzan had appeared in an unmatched state. After witnessing Muzan's methods, they still had a basic understanding of their own capabilities. No matter how much he hated him, no matter how much he wanted to tear him into 1,000 pieces, he had to admit that Muzan really wasn't someone an ordinary person could deal with. So their strategy from the very beginning was to stall. However, although the current Muzan was still not someone they could deal with, why did he inexplicably give people a feeling of being powerless? The problem should lie with Muzan himself. Muzan clearly thought of something. Then, under everyone's astonished gazes, the scene in the light curtain shifted. Muzan stood in a space of flesh and blood. He raised his right hand high, and a head gradually formed in his hand, It was the very same head that Muzan had crushed at the beginning. Lady Tamayo. Could this be, inside Muzan's body? Watching this situation that defied common sense, Kocho Shinobu spoke in disbelief. Is it not just the medicine to turn demons back into humans that you injected into my body? What? How could such a medicine exist? Tsunemi Shinazugawa froze in place. His brain uncontrollably returned to that night. If only. If he had returned a little bit earlier that day. If such a medicine had existed back then. Would his mother not have? Besides the medicine to turn demons back into humans, there's also. As if unconscious, Tamayo repeated Muzan's words with a dazed expression. Then, under Muzan's expectant gaze, she suddenly grinned and laughed heartily. I won't tell you. Use those extra brains you grew out of your fear of death. Stop dreaming. Since her appearance, Tamayo had never looked more like a demon than at this moment. However, the object of her hatred and ruthlessness was the demon king before her. Pop. Humiliated like this by Tamayo, Muzan was furious and once again crushed the cells he had managed to gather with great difficulty. Listening to the dialogue between the two, everyone realized that this battle seemed to be far more than what they were seeing. It seemed the battle had already begun long before the light curtain. Forget it, reading the memories left in her cells will tell me just the same. As Muzan's voice fell, the scene in the light curtain changed again. Appearing before everyone were Kocho Shinobu and Yushiro. Is that me? It was fine seeing others, but when she appeared on the light curtain herself, Kocho Shinobu suddenly felt a bit awkward. And, these were Lady Tamayo's memories, with Yushiro by her side. This proves that in the future, we will know each other. Regarding this point, the others actually accepted it well. After all, developing a medicine to turn demons back into humans was not something easily accomplished. Only by concentrating all available resources, gathering people proficient in pharmacology, and breaking the barriers between races could such a miracle be created. In the future, will I actually conduct experiments with a demon? Thinking of this, Kocho Shinobu fell silent. Her current self would become furious at the mere thought of demons. If she hadn't seen the contents of the light curtain beforehand, she couldn't imagine a scenario where she would share a room with a demon one day. It seemed she was still too immature. Oh, this woman. She's the human proficient in using poison who was eaten by Doma, right? I didn't expect Tamayo to get involved with her. Seeing Kocho Shinobu appear, Muzan's inner voice also rang out. Hearing Muzan's comment, everyone's expressions changed. Many gazes turned toward Kocho Shinobu, who was still deep in thought. Anyone would feel uncomfortable hearing about their own death from someone else's mouth. Especially if it was an enemy. As the subject of the conversation, Kocho Shinobu actually didn't feel much. When she didn't appear on the battlefield, she had already accepted her fate. Now she only wanted to know if there was any useful information in Muzan's memories that could help her research. Could her current self utilize this information? Meanwhile, Tsunemi Shinazugawa noticed that name. Doma. He chewed over the name in his heart. Someone whose name could be remembered by Muzan must also be one of the upper moons. Currently, their understanding of the upper moons was still far too little. Unfortunately, Muzan did not reveal any more relevant information in his thoughts. The Kocho Shinobu in Tamayo's memory lifted her head from the microscope and looked over. Although the medicine to turn demons into humans has been successfully developed, considering a demon's ability to decompose toxins, I believe we should proceed with research into multiple drug combinations immediately, on the premise that the toxins will be decomposed by Muzan. The first is the medicine to turn him back into a human. If that doesn't work, we'll use a second medicine that can take strong effect. I think the toxin developed by Lady Tamayo is very good. When Kocho Shinobu spoke of this toxin, there was even a hint of a smile on her face. Biological beings ultimately have limits. This poison, which can age Muzan's body by a full 50 years every minute, is perfect for weakening Muzan's regeneration. 50 years. Everyone was shaken by this number. Muichiro Tokido did a quick estimation in his head. If calculated this way, then in this half hour of battle, Muzan had already aged a full 1,500 years. However, as the party involved, Muzan clearly had a different understanding. Upon hearing this number, a storm brewed within Muzan's heart. Let me think, when did Tamayo inject the drug into my body? 4 hours. No, it should be about 5 hours ago. Had the battle been going on for this long without them knowing? Hearing Muzan's inner thoughts, everyone was stunned. Calculating it this way, by the time the video started, they had actually been fighting for 3.5 hours. 5 hours, added together, Muzan had already aged a full 15,000 years. What a flamboyant strategy! Uzui Tengen exclaimed from the bottom of his heart. How could the older Hashira like them not be aware of Kocho Shinobu's inner turmoil? However, even though her body was small and frail, she never gave up. She had been working hard in her own field and even proposed a series of plans sufficient to cause Muzan great trouble. Truly a respectable person. And that demon lady, Lady Tamayo, is also a genuine genius. Whether it was the medicine to turn demons back into humans or the medicine to age Muzan's physical body, neither was something that could be easily produced. Presumably, she also endured countless days and nights with hatred for Muzan, just to wait for such an opportunity. Though they are of different races, she, who shares the same stance, is equally worthy of respect. I have a question. After fighting for so long, why hasn't a single upper rank appeared by Muzan's side? Obanai Iguro asked. No matter how useless those upper ranks are, or how much Muzan dislikes them, it shouldn't reach the point where not even one appears at a time like this, right? Hearing this question, everyone also realized something was wrong. No, perhaps one did appear, Nakame, the one who was fought over by Yushiro and Muzan earlier. Although her eyes were covered by paper charms and specific numbers couldn't be seen, her ability to manipulate the entire Infinity Castle left no other explanation if she wasn't an upper rank. So, where did the other 11 of the 12 Kazuki go? Thinking of the Hashira who kept arriving during the battle, the appearance of Tsunemi Shinazugawa and Gyome Himahima after the Infinity Castle collapsed, and Muzan who had been fighting alone the whole time. An answer was about to emerge. For a wicked demon like this, is there any other place for them besides hell? Tsunemi Shinazugawa sneered. Even if it only took effect after the first drug was decomposed, it should have been acting in my body for at least 3 hours. In other words, I have aged at least 9,000 years now. And I'm still aging. Yes, why didn't I notice that the color of my hair hasn't recovered? Muzan's voice sounded somewhat broken. However, when these words reached everyone's ears, they were like celestial music. Ka ka ka, 59 minutes until sunrise. The Kasugai Crow's time announcement served as another reminder that 50 years of Muzan's life had passed again. Sun breathing, setting sun transformation. Sun breathing, beneficent radiance. On the battlefield outside, Tanjiro's attacks continued. Stop jumping around incessantly. Perhaps realizing his poor condition and wanting to end the battle quickly to decompose the toxins, every move Muzan made carried killing intent. Oh no. I'm running out of oxygen. Hearing Tanjiro's inner thoughts, everyone's hearts tightened. Then they saw that within the light curtain, Tanjiro's figure was falling backward. But Muzan's attack would not wait for him. The boy won't be able to dodge this move. Kyojuro Rengoku stared intently at the light curtain. Since entering Muzan's inner world, Nezuko had been watching somewhat confusedly. However, she knew that this bad person was still fighting her brother somewhere. Although she didn't know what the medicine to turn demons into humans meant, she knew that aging 50 years in 1 minute was a truly terrifying poison. This was equivalent to being able to live out a person's entire life in just 1 minute. And that monster was actually fighting her brother and the others while enduring such toxins, and had even beaten them into that state. Thinking of the severed leg of the big brother with the flail she just saw, and the severed arm of the big brother who appeared with her brother at the very beginning, Nezuko felt sad again. He truly is a monster. But why can such a scourge live for so long, while those who live with all their might, those who live happy lives, are all being hurt by him? This monster clearly had his arms cut off time and again, yet they could still grow back, and even his appearance hadn't changed much. But so many of the brothers and sisters fighting him had already died, and even these exceptionally powerful brothers were covered in wounds. It's so unfair. Nezuko watched her brother risk his life to charge up again and again, be pushed back, and charge up once more. She felt so unwilling. Why did her brother swing his sword time after time, yet couldn't leave a single scar on Muzan's body? Why can't I fight alongside my brother? I really don't want to see anyone get hurt anymore. The always gentle and kind Nezuko suddenly had this thought after witnessing everyone harmed by Muzan. Just as she was thinking this, she suddenly saw in the light curtain that her brother stumbled, and the attack from the monster named Muzan struck again. She instinctively wanted to close her eyes, but this time, she tried hard to restrain the urge. Though her heart was in torment, Nezuko steadfastly watched every frame of the scene in the light curtain. If I want to face this together with my brother, I cannot run away. She told herself in her heart. Then, she saw that the big brother in the striped haori called Iguro pounced out from some corner and saved her brother. She breathed a long sigh of relief. In this battle, her brother had really been saved by people many times. If I also become this powerful, would I be able to save someone too? Iguro-san. Your eyes. Tanjiro seemed to have regained consciousness. After seeing Iguro-san's face, he suddenly cried out in alarm. Ah! Nezuko covered her mouth. On that Iguro-san's face, at some point, two deep gashes had appeared, crossing through his eyes. He was already blind, yet he still saved her brother. My eyes went blind just now. You're too noisy, stop always worrying about others. That Iguro-san said coldly. Although his words were icy, Nezuko knew that perhaps this was just his way of expressing concern. Crack. Seeing that the Hashira he thought he had killed earlier were moving again, Muzan stopped holding back. He flew into the air and delivered another explosive lash. The two narrowly dodged it, and the tall building beside them shattered upon impact. Rumble. Tsunemi Shinazugawa stared at the scene in the light curtain, his heart filled with a craving for battle. Iguro has already gotten up. There's no reason for me, who has a better physical constitution than Iguro, to still be lying there. What is the future me doing? This useless piece of trash. After training for so many years, when it comes to the crucial battle, does he only know how to lie there? Under the violent impact, Tanjiro was thrown toward the ground, while Obanai Iguro and Kaburamaru continued to battle Muzan in midair. Strangely, although Obanai Iguro was blind, with Kaburamaru's coordination, he was actually able to barely withstand Muzan's offensive. This isn't a long-term solution. Iguro is blind, trying to keep resisting such high-intensity attacks is just too difficult. Guillaume Himahima shook his head. Tanjiro wanted to help, but having just suffered from oxygen deprivation, his heart was willing but his body was weak. He could only dodge Muzan's attacks while observing him. Suddenly, he noticed a series of black scars appearing on Muzan's body. What is this? Kyojuro Rengoku was somewhat puzzled. During this time, that young boy and Iguro hadn't landed any effective hits on Muzan, had they? Could this be the effect of physical aging? These are scars. They're old wounds left behind by Mr. Yorichi. Tanjiro's inner thoughts answered the question. Back then, the wounds Mr. Yorichi left didn't heal. Instead, they've been continuously burning Muzan's cells for hundreds of years. The locations of these scars. They are Muzan's weak points. Mr. Yorichi, it's Mr. Yorichi again. Just who exactly is this Mr. Yorichi? First sun breathing, then 100-year-old scars, it's as if this man is Muzan's natural nemesis. And how did Tanjiro know all of this? However, none of that mattered right now. While everyone was still caught in a state of tense wonder, Kagaya Ubuyashiki's heart grew inexplicably calm. The appearance of one miracle after another made him feel certain that the day shown on the light curtain would be the day Muzan finally met his end. 40 minutes until sunrise. Everyone heard Muzan curse in his heart. I'll let these maggots live for a little longer. Once I've finished decomposing the toxins in my body and repaired my wounds, I'll come back and crush these maggots one by one. Hearing Muzan say this, Kocho Shinobu's expression changed drastically. Oh no. He's trying to run. Sure enough, in the next second and before everyone's eyes, Muzan turned and fled. Muzan is escaping. We can't let him get away. Tsunemi Shinazugawa grew anxious. If he really managed to escape, wouldn't those who died earlier have sacrificed themselves for nothing? Moreover, a monster like Muzan, cruel yet extremely desperate to stay alive, would bring total disaster to the Demon Slayer Corps once he recovered. He cannot be allowed to escape. This was the shared consensus in everyone's hearts. However, the speed of a Muzan determined to flee was simply beyond the reach of ordinary people. Seeing that he couldn't catch up to the fleeing Muzan, Tanjiro simply stopped chasing. He picked up a sword from a fallen Demon Slayer Corps member at his feet and hurled it at Muzan. The attack indeed caused some interference for Muzan. To block the Nichiren's sword, Muzan's speed slowed down significantly. The attack indeed caused some interference for Muzan. To block the Nichiren's sword, Muzan's speed slowed down significantly. Muzan was furious. He no longer wanted to waste energy on his body. However, having already become a deserter, this was no longer his choice to make. Slash. Obanai Iguro descended from the sky, driving his Nichiren sword straight through Muzan's chest, attempting to pin him to the ground. Yes. Just like that, pin him down flamboyantly. Watching Obanai Iguro's strike from the heavens, Uzui Tengen's eyes sparkled. Even though he knew Obanai Iguro wasn't strong enough to restrain the current Muzan, stopping Muzan's flight was already a massive achievement. As expected, the exhausted Obanai Iguro was soon thrown off by Muzan. But at the same time, Tanjiro arrived as well. Mr. Iguro, please take this. Use it to share vision with Kaburamaru. Kaburamaru bit onto the paper talisman Tanjiro threw over, and Obanai Iguro stuck it onto his forehead. Thank you. Instantly, Obanai Iguro's movements became much more agile. The two attacked from both sides, clinging to Muzan and refusing to give him any chance to leave. Kagaya Ubuyashiki watched all this, the satisfaction in his heart nearly overflowing. Muzan Kibutsuji, are you finally getting a taste of despair too? Suffer. Fear. Despair. The pain our Demon Slayer Corps has endured generation after generation is far greater than yours. This is only the beginning. Stay right here in the hell we have woven for you. Did you see that? Muzan's movements have slowed down a lot more. Kyojuro Rengoku stared intently at Muzan. The sound of his heavy breathing has also increased. I think his body might be starting to overload. Though Muichiro Tokido's voice was calm, his expression had become somewhat excited. 35 minutes until sunrise. The Kasugai Crow announced again, Muzan had just aged another 250 years. To think they could push me to this extent. Is this body, belonging to the Lord of Demons, actually reaching its limit? Muzan's eyes were blood red, his heart filled with disbelief. I must leave immediately. Thinking this, Muzan's body began to swell. I escaped using this move against that man. I can do the same today. What is he doing now? Why won't he just stay down? Can't he just become a ghost and die properly? Tsunemi Shinazugawa had finally seen hope of killing Muzan, but hearing these words, unease rose in his heart again. That man. Does he mean Mr. Yorichi? Kocho Shinobu thought of the name Tanjiro had mentioned earlier. So, Muzan had used this method to escape from the man who left those scars on him in the past. Mr. Iguro. He's going to self-destruct. He's planning to turn into tiny pieces of flesh to escape. As long as one piece gets away, Muzan can regenerate from it. Stop him, quick. Seeing Muzan's suddenly swelling body, Tanjiro shouted with a pale face, and Obanai Iguro braced himself for a formidable foe. Everyone's heart went cold. This fooled vermin, Shinazugawa said with hatred. Why must such a creature exist in this world? Namu Amida Butsu. Gyome Himahima wept. Even though Tanjiro said to stop him, everyone knew that with just the two of them, it was impossible to stop a Muzan intent on self-destructing. Was Muzan really going to get away? Even though they had already backed him into a corner. Under everyone's desperate gaze, Muzan's body slowly swelled and swelled. Just a moment before the self-destruction, he suddenly stopped and quickly returned to his original form. How can this be? Muzan's eyes widened in disbelief. Then, as if he had suddenly realized something, he roared in fury. Tamayo. Is my inability to self-destruct also your doing? Just how many kinds of poison did you inject into my body? What do you think? At some point, Tamayo had appeared in Muzan's consciousness, wearing that kimono and smiling both gently and maliciously. I suppose you thought there were 3. What a shame, there are actually 4. In the next second, Tamayo suddenly appeared by Muzan's ear, whispering softly to him. After the first 3 drugs have weakened your body to a certain extent, the 4th drug will begin to take effect. It will continuously destroy your cells. Let me think, can your precarious cells, aged countless times over and maintained only by constant regeneration, really be reborn after being destroyed like this? Which do you think will arrive first? The blades of the Demon Slayer core, the sun, or your regeneration? Hey, don't be in such a hurry. The death you loathe most will soon descend upon you. At this moment, Tamayo looked like a life-claiming demon, yet she had become the hope for the Demon Slayer core to destroy Muzan. We don't need to become stronger than you to kill you, we only need to find a way to make you weaker. Just as you would stop at nothing to survive, we will use any means necessary to kill you. Outside the light curtain, everyone was shocked by Tamayo. To think she could calculate to such an extent. Muichiro Tokito was in disbelief. So flamboyant. If it weren't for an ultimate understanding of Muzan, it would be impossible to design such a flamboyant finishing plan. Uzui Tengen sighed with heartfelt admiration. Each step is linked, closing in like a venomous snake. If she weren't an ally, she would be a truly terrifying enemy. Obanai Iguro murmured to himself. Most of Muzan's abilities have been sealed. Next, as long as we stall until dawn, we will surely kill him. Namu Amida Butsu. Kocho Shinobu stood to the side, remaining silent for a long time. Although I don't know what happened to Lady Tamayo in the past, I can understand that a deep hatred is buried in her heart. This hatred has fermented over many years, eventually turning into a sharp blade that pierces Muzan. Muzan, today will surely be the day you are laid to rest. I wonder, when you truly die here, will you regret everything you've done? Sister, are you watching? PFF'd. The scene returned to reality once more as Muzan spat out a mouthful of blood. This was the first time since the start of the battle that Muzan showed signs of being severely wounded. Lady Tamayo's medicine must be working. We can win. Tanjiro's eyes lit up. However, at this moment, Muzan's anger and fear had reached their peak. I never expected that I would be pushed to this extent by these vermin. Boom. With Muzan as the center, an extremely powerful shockwave erupted instantly, sending everyone around him flying. Everyone who could see Muzan was affected by this move. Including the young Oyakata-sama far away in the residence. PFF'd. Korea Ubuyashiki coughed up blood from his mouth and nose, collapsing onto the table. Oyakata-sama. Beside him, a man with red and yellow hair quickly helped him up. In an instant, everyone in Oyakata-sama's courtyard looked toward Kagaya Ubuyashiki. Korea Ubuyashiki had taken up the responsibilities of Oyakata-sama, which proved that Kagaya Ubuyashiki was no longer there. Oyakata-sama. Then, everyone knelt on one knee before Oyakata-sama. We are sorry. We failed to protect you. The Hashira all lowered their heads, unable to look up due to intense grief and shame. They had actually failed to protect Oyakata-sama. How could they face anyone? Tsunemi Shinazugawa knelt on the ground, his heart pounding violently. Why? Why can these hands protect nothing? He had thought that by slaying all the demons, he could protect everything he wanted to. But his teammates were falling one by one, and his friends and those he admired were still disappearing before him. Yet I am still here. Standing here as a failure, as someone incompetent. The me in the light curtain didn't even fight for long, and now you're telling me I couldn't even protect Oyakata-sama. Then what on earth have these hands protected? Drip. Drops of water fell to the ground. Tsunemi Shinazugawa unconsciously raised his hand, only to find himself covered in tears. My children, there is no need to be sad. This is only an image of the future. Kagaya Ubuyashiki understood perfectly what his dear children were thinking. To deal with Muzan, every child in our Demon Slayer Corps has given their all. Why should I spare my own life? Moreover, even with so many shackles upon us and facing so many difficulties, we were still able to push Muzan to such a state. This time, with the future revealed to us by the light curtain, we will surely do better. Please, Oyakata-sama, do not put yourself in danger. The Hashira lowered their heads once more in plea. Seeing his children before him, Kagaya Ubuyashiki smiled helplessly. I understand. On the table next to the young Oyakata-sama, Kanata Ubuyashiki was helped up by someone wearing a kimono and an eye patch, who wiped the blood from her mouth and nose. 25 minutes until sunrise. We're so close. We must not let Muzan escape. Is there anyone else left who can fight? The tiny Oyakata-sama wiped the blood from his nose and gave orders calmly. Everyone who can still fight, continue to intercept Muzan. You must not let him escape. It was only then that everyone noticed the two people who had been with Korea and Kanata Ubuyashiki. Father. Kyojuro Rengoku's eyes widened in surprise. Yes, the man with red and yellow hair beside Korea Ubuyashiki looked up. It was indeed Kyojuro Rengoku's father, Shinjiro Rengoku. I didn't expect even father to come. Kyojuro Rengoku stared blankly at the man, who appeared even older now. If father is here, it proves that I am truly gone. To think that in the end, I would still make father worry. I really am an unfilial son. Thinking of his father, who was currently at home drinking heavily, Kyojuro Rengoku suddenly missed him at this moment. Meanwhile, the others stared at the silver-haired man in the kimono. He looked exceptionally familiar. Silver hair, red eyes. Wait, who is this? Is that the future Uzui Tengen? He's protecting Oyakata-sama in the residence. As for Uzui Tengen, he had recognized himself from the start. His gaze was fixed intently on his own eye patch. So, the future me is still alive, but I've lost my left eye and left hand. How pathetic of me. I wonder if those three were doing well then. On the main battlefield, Tanjiro lay on the ground, his whole body convulsing. Standing before him was that boar-headed boy. Muzan's body was covered in fangs, and he could no longer maintain his original human form. At this moment, he was gasping for breath, showing a level of exhaustion he had never displayed before. Look at what you've done. To protect us, the prayer bead's Big Bro's leg was broken, the center-parted Howery Big Bro's arm was shredded, and all those comrades who ate with me, give them back. In front of Muzan, tears streamed out from the boar-headed boy's mask. Center-parted Howery Big Bro. Who is he talking about? The eyes of the Hashira drifted more or less toward Gyu Tomioka. It had to be said, that nickname was truly distinctive. Gyu Tomioka inexplicably met Obanai Iguro's gaze. Why is everyone suddenly looking at me? Is something wrong? Your gaze is annoying. Obanai Iguro clenched his fists. Hey, do you think I actually want to look at your face? After saying that, he turned around, completely turning his back on Gyu Tomioka, while Kaburamaru hissed and flicked its tongue at him. So, what exactly happened? After the boar-headed boy appeared, the yellow-haired youth also joined the battlefield. He came to Tanjiro's side. After checking on Tanjiro's condition, he shouted toward the boar-headed boy in the distance. Inosuke. Hang in there. Tanjiro is still alive. Then, he shouted to Tanjiro. Tanjiro. Right now, don't think about anything except staying alive, understand? Tanjiro. Right now, don't think about anything except staying alive, understand? This sentence carried a massive amount of information, leaving the three members of the Kamado family stunned. Nezuko, who has already turned back into a human. Nezuko is still alive. Wait, what does already turned back into a human mean? It seemed to have been mentioned before that Lady Tamayo had developed a medicine to turn demons back into humans. Could it be that I also turned into one of those terrifying monsters? Did I hurt everyone too? Watching the no longer human Muzan on the light curtain, Nezuko's eyes widened in disbelief. I don't want to become like that. I don't want to hurt anyone. It's okay, Nezuko. Don't overthink it. Tanjiro hugged Nezuko. Even if you really did become like that, I will definitely watch over you and never let you hurt anyone. So don't worry, okay? Nezuko gave a muffled response in Tanjiro's arms. I've already decided to join the Demon Slayer Corps with my brother. No matter what happens in the future, I am still me, and I will never hurt anyone. Nezuko. Is she that boy's family? In the master's courtyard, the Hashira also deduced this information. Their feelings were somewhat complicated at this moment. Obanai Iguro silently stared at the youth collapsed on the ground, twitching continuously. If I had known this before seeing the information on the light curtain, I would have certainly demanded the immediate execution of the boy named Tanjiro and the girl named Nezuko. But now, these two demons, Tamayo and Yushiro, have been doing their utmost to help the Demon Slayer Corps fight Muzan. The facts are right before our eyes. Is it possible that not a single demon is worthy of trust? Since she is so accepted by the members, she must also be a member of the Demon Slayer Corps. Kocho Shinobu said softly. At the very least, she poses no threat to the Demon Slayer Corps. The Hashira fell silent. Rather than making baseless judgments that the yet-to-appear Nezuko is an evil demon, they preferred to believe what their eyes saw. This boy named Tanjiro was fighting bravely here, giving his all to take Muzan's head. This was enough to prove the siblings' stance. After hearing the yellow-haired youth's words, Tanjiro took several deep breaths and then suddenly plunged his Nichiren sword into himself. Clever boy. To think he'd use a Nichiren sword to save himself from the damage caused by a blood demon art. Kyojuro Rengoku sighed in admiration. As expected, the move worked. Clutching his wound, Tanjiro stood up again with his sword in hand. In the distance, Giyu Tomioka, holding his sword in his left hand, and Gyome Himahima, biting a chain with his teeth and moving along the wall, were also slowly approaching. Fooled pests. No matter how many times I stomp on you, you refuse to die. One by one, you keep crawling out from under my feet. After Muzan dodged Inosuke's slash, he sent him flying. Every Demon Slayer Corps member he considered a bedbug was giving their all, landing blow after blow on Muzan's body. Why must you all get in my way? Swinging his Nichiren sword, Tanjiro found a gap in Muzan's evasion and stabbed forward, pinning him to the wall. Muzan struggled, but surprisingly, he couldn't break free on the first attempt. Great chance. Pin him down. Kyojuro Rengoku grew excited. I don't have the strength left to use any more sword techniques, so I must do everything in my power to pin Muzan to this wall. Tanjiro's inner thoughts echoed in everyone's ears. This was the best way. But could Tanjiro, who was now exhausted and had become a complete target, really keep Muzan under control? Once Muzan regained his senses, the whips behind him lashed out, about to strike Tanjiro. However, his attack was stopped. Muzan turned his head and found Mitsuri Kanroji, with tears in the corners of her eyes, had appeared out of nowhere and grabbed his mutated right hand. That's quite enough, you big jerk. Then, under Muzan's horrified gaze, Mitsuri Kanroji exerted her strength and tore his arm right off. The eyes of the Hashira all turned toward Kyojuro Rengoku. Is Rengoku's Suguko really this fierce? Tearing Muzan apart by hand. In Kocho Shinobu's eyes, besides shock, there was a hint of envy. How nice. If only I had that kind of strength, perhaps I could be the one to decapitate demons. Stomp, stomp, stomp. The massive momentum forced Mitsuri Kanroji back a few steps. However, this also meant she was a sitting duck. Smack. Muzan's other arm lashed out mercilessly against her body. Miss Kanroji. The most important thing right now is to keep Muzan pinned here and not move an inch. Kyojuro Rengoku looked with concern at Mitsuri Kanroji, who lay on the ground, her fate unknown, yet he still spoke those words. And in the light curtain, Tanjiro was indeed doing exactly that. Even as Muzan's next strike came straight for him, he still gripped his sword tightly, not letting go for even a second. Slash. Tsunemi Shinazugawa arrived just in time, severing another of Muzan's arms with a single slash. Then, he pinned Muzan's arm with his sword to prevent regeneration, becoming the second nail in his body. With both hands restrained, to Tanjiro's horror, Muzan split himself open from the middle, transforming into a multi-fanged monster that was chilling just to look at. The monster opened its gaping maw and lunged to bite Tanjiro. How hideous! Namu Amida Butsu, Gyome Himahima said, pressing his hands together. But, this child. Although she desperately wanted Muzan to be pinned there at all costs, Kocho Shinobu still felt a sense of urgency as she watched the crisis Tanjiro was facing. Don't back down. Don't take even a single step back. We must not let Muzan escape. They could hear Tanjiro's heart roaring. Kocho Shinobu watched the scene in the light curtain in silence. This young boy was truly standing there with the determination to die. Although everyone present was prepared to sacrifice themselves to kill Muzan, the boy's actions were still deeply moving. Just as Tanjiro was prepared to face Muzan's massive maw with a resolve to die, Obanai Iguro rushed forward and shielded Tanjiro. How could this be? Everyone was deeply shaken by the scene before them. As one of the 9 Hashira, isn't it only natural to stand up for a junior? The protagonist, Obanai Iguro, appeared much more composed. Even though I would have done the same thing. But, Obanai, I'm afraid your life is about to be flamboyantly exhausted after this strike. Uzui Tengen had been somewhat silent ever since he found out he was at the Oyakata-sama's mansion to protect the master. Protecting the master is also a very important job, but seeing you all fighting for your lives on the front lines. I am truly filled with shame. Iguro-san. In the light curtain, Tanjiro's expression turned pained as he saw someone else getting severely injured to protect him. However, all he did was push the Nichiren sword in his hand even harder. As everyone struggled with all their might, the first faint light of dawn appeared in the distance. Time is something both cruel and fair, it does not change for the will of humans, nor for the will of demons. The moment he saw the sun peeking out, Muzan's eyes nearly split from rage. You fool insects! At this moment, he no longer held anything back and unleashed his ultimate move. Under the violent impact, Obanai Iguro and Tsunemi Shinazugawa were blown away after protecting Tanjiro one last time. And Tanjiro's left arm, which remained where he stood, also exploded. With the restraints around him reduced, Muzan's struggle grew more intense. I have no strength left. I can't let go, I absolutely cannot let go. Despite still being attacked by Muzan, Tanjiro remained motionless, staring fixedly at his blade. Set my heart ablaze, turn the blade red, please. At this critical moment, another hand gripped the sword hilt. It was Gyu Tomioka. He used his remaining left hand and Tanjiro's remaining right hand to grip the hilt together. Through their combined efforts, the Nichiren sword turned into a bright red Nichiren sword once again. Muzan was clearly unable to withstand the power of the bright red Nichiren sword at this point. He suddenly coughed up a mouthful of blood. Looking at the horizon, the sun had already partially emerged, and burn marks began to appear on Muzan's face. It's working. At such a moment, Even the usually indifferent Muichiro Tokido showed an excited expression. Hold on, Tomioka-san. Hold on, Tanjiro. Kocho Shinobu watched the light curtain, unable to hide her excitement. Tomioka, if you dare let Muzan escape now, I'll never forgive you. Although Sanemi Shinazugawa spoke harsh words, his eyes remained fixed on the screen, not wanting to miss a single detail. Giyu Tomioka didn't speak, he just stared at the light curtain intently. Hold on. Don't let go. I, who have been useless all this time, must at least be of some use now. Namu Amida Butsu. Go to hell, Muzan. Excited tears flowed from Guillaume Himahima's eyes. No, I can't just sit here and wait for death. Protect the body. Flesh armor. Before everyone could understand what Muzan meant by flesh armor, they saw his body inexplicably grow larger. He gradually expanded into a giant baby, which completely protected Muzan's main body. During the expansion process, Tanjiro was absorbed into the giant baby. Tanjiro. Giyu Tomioka cried out, but Tanjiro had completely vanished from his sight. However, he had something more important to do. Stop Muzan. Stop him. Don't let him hide in the shade. The young master suddenly stood up and gave orders to the other members of the Demon Slayer Corps. Muzan has lost his combat ability. As long as we block him, it will all be over. Facing this sudden turn of events, Kyojuro Rengoku was not discouraged. As long as we can block him, we can end this. Obanai Iguro stared fixedly at the screen, watching that giant, hideous baby crawling on the ground while emitting thick smoke. We can't let him recover. Block him. Sanemi Shinazugawa gripped his Nichiren sword tightly, wishing he could rush into the screen to stand in Muzan's way. Giyu Tomioka pursed his lips and stood behind the others. This time, I cannot fail again. Brother. Brother was absorbed by Muzan. Nezuko screamed as she looked at the giant, hideous baby on the ground. Tanjiro also frowned deeply at the sudden change. In this situation, it will be very difficult for the me in the light curtain to survive. But he decided not to let Nezuko worry for now. She had already shed too many tears and worried too much today. Don't worry, Muzan is at his wit's end. This should be the final battle. Tanjiro said, looking at the sun gradually rising on the light curtain and the Demon Slayer Corps members trying every possible way to place obstacles in front of Muzan. Nezuko watched the light curtain. After using construction materials to block Muzan, several Demon Slayer Corps members drove cars to block him. Watch out! Seeing Muzan's massive hand swing down, Nezuko instinctively cried out again. However, before the car was crushed, the member had already jumped out to escape. Phew! Nezuko breathed a long sigh of relief. If this monster only has this much attacking power left, maybe brother really will be okay. Maybe when this monster turns to ash, brother will come out. Even though brother's left arm is broken, it's okay, as long as he's alive. That yellow-haired brother said earlier that I'm still alive and have turned back into a human. So no matter what brother becomes, I will take good care of him. He has suffered so much and sustained so many injuries, he deserves a good rest. She stared at the baby Muzan on the screen, who is currently struggling against the members using a bus. You monster, why are you still alive? After doing so many evil things, killing so many people, and turning into this hideous form, why do you still exist? Just go to hell already. No matter what happens, do not retreat. The Hashira are no longer able to fight, this is our battlefield now. The Demon Slayer Corps members encouraged each other as they worked hard to stop Muzan's advance. Muzan has already suffered extensive burns. Just hold on a little longer. Just as Muzan gave up the struggle and tried to climb onto the roof of the car, a revived Sanemi Shinazugawa arrived once again. Wind breathing, 9th form, a Dayton typhoon. Muzan's right hand was severed by Sanemi Shinazugawa, however, he still struggled to climb onto the roof. Why won't this beast just die? Hurry up and crumble into ash for me. Inside and outside the light curtain, two Tsunemi Shinazugawas spoke simultaneously, expressing the exact same sentiment. Just as Muzan was about to flip over the vehicle, a chain wrapped around his neck from behind, strangling him. Arg. Led by the stone Hashira, Gyome Himahima, and using the iron chain as a link, everyone began a tug of war with Muzan, forcibly dragging the infant Muzan off the car. The infant Muzan fell backward, sunlight burning large areas of his body as he let out a non-biological wail. Sunlight, hurry and turn him to dust. Kagaya Ubuyashiki tightly held Amane's hand, the light in his eyes terrifyingly bright. The long-cherished wish of so many generations, the karma of so many generations. Is it finally going to end here? Die. You foolish beast. Obanai Iguro stared at the charred blackness on Muzan's body. Muzan's body had already begun to dissolve. Soon, very soon, this beast would disappear from this world. Kocho Shinobu gazed at the light curtain, her eyes full of anticipation. I never thought I would actually see the day Muzan dies. Sister, we did it. Muzan seemed to want to make one last struggle. He flipped over, using all his strength to try and burrow into the ground. How does he still have this move? Anxiety appeared in Muichiro Tokito's previously expectant eyes. We can't let him escape. Kyojuro Rengoku shouted. Before he can burrow into the ground, the sun will burn him to nothing. Even though they said that, the people in the light curtain didn't dare take any risks. One last gamble. Everyone. Muzan is trying to dive underground. Attack quickly. Exhaust Muzan's stamina as much as possible. Aside from Gyome Himahima, who was in a tug of war with Muzan, the three Hashira who were still standing launched their final offensives. Water breathing, 10th form, constant flux. Wind breathing, 5th form, cold mountain wind, morning tree. Serpent breathing, 4th form, twin-headed reptile. Blood gushed from their mouths, yet they continued to slash at Muzan, strike after strike. Keep going. Kagaya Ubuyashiki stared at the four people still fighting to the death, silently cheering them on in his heart. To stop Muzan, they were burning everything they had. However, an accident still happened. Snap. The iron chain couldn't withstand the tension, it finally let out a cry and snapped. Taking advantage of the moment the Demon Slayer Corps members fell, Muzan frantically tried to burrow into the ground. Don't let that beast escape. Outside the light curtain, Tsunemi Shinazugawa shouted anxiously. But it was already useless. His future self had already fainted after delivering the final slash. Tomioka and Iguro were also unable to fight any longer. Guillaume's leg was broken, he couldn't possibly stop Muzan from trying to flee. How frustrating, truly frustrating. So much has been sacrificed, and they've fought so hard to get here. How could they let Muzan escape? What would all the previous sacrifices have been for then? Guillaume Himahima had tears in his eyes as he prayed silently in his heart. At the very end, is it still impossible? Sun, sunlight, show some mercy. Slay this evil demon. Suddenly, just as Muzan was about to disappear into the ground, a bright red Nichiren sword abruptly appeared in the light curtain. A bright red Nichiren sword. And the person holding the sword seemed to be inside something. It's Tanjiro. The light of hope filled everyone's eyes once again. I thought his fate was unknown, but I didn't expect him to give us such a surprise from inside Muzan's body. What a flashy strike, Tanjiro. Having saved the situation from the brink of disaster multiple times, Uzui Tengen now had immense appreciation for Tanjiro. Sleep forever, Muzan. Kagaya Ubuyashiki was so excited for a moment that he even forgot to breathe. When he finally caught his breath, it triggered a fit of coughing. Meanwhile, Kyojuro Rengoku looked at the close-up of the Nichiren sword on the light curtain and then at his own. Is that my sword guard? Then, as if he had figured something out, he began to smile. This boy has done far better than I ever could. Brother. Brother is okay. Brother is still alive. Nezuko, who had been worried about Tanjiro's safety and whether Muzan would escape, finally became excited. Having watched the battle from beginning to end, she naturally recognized Tanjiro's hand and his sword. Brother, you're really amazing. You didn't give up even in such a desperate situation. You even stopped this monster's escape plan. Looking at Muzan, who had begun to spray blood in the light curtain, anyone could see that Muzan's burrowing plan had failed. All that awaited him was death. Tanjiro smiled helplessly, patted Nezuko's hair, and looked back at the light curtain. This matter should finally have a resolution. Let the monster Muzan end here. Under everyone's efforts, the sun finally revealed its warmth, hanging high in the sky. The light of hope, which the Demon Slayer Corps had risked everything for, finally poured down onto Muzan. And Muzan had nowhere left to run. Before everyone, he cried and wailed. However, nothing could stop him from gradually turning into ash. The light curtain showed a large close-up of this moment. They could even see every piece of skin and every organ on Muzan's body slowly dissipating into the air. This is the ending this monster deserves. Muichiro Tokido sighed with heartfelt emotion. HMPH, this beast committed so many sins, this kind of death is still too good for him. Although Sanemi Shinazugawa said this, his hands were trembling. It was the excitement of a long-cherished wish being fulfilled. Kocho Shinobu, on the other hand, burst into tears. At this moment, she really wanted to cheer at the top of her lungs. They did it. They really did it. And Kagaya Ubuyashiki slumped to the ground as if he had suddenly lost all his strength. Master. Master, what's wrong? Although everyone was still immersed in the joy of Muzan's death, Kagaya Ubuyashiki's condition was still very worrying to them. I'm fine, children. Let me rest for a moment, just let me rest. Kagaya Ubuyashiki wiped the corners of his eyes and spoke softly. In the light curtain, the children of the Demon Slayer Corps were of one heart. They had pushed Muzan into such a desperate situation and completely destroyed him. But he wouldn't forget that in the world he was in, Muzan was still alive. Since they already knew the future, the chips they had to defeat Muzan had increased a bit more. They would definitely be able to do even better. In Oyakata-sama's small courtyard. After a long period of excitement, everyone's emotions finally calmed down. Oyakata-sama, I suggest we prepare based on the content of the light curtain from now on. Guillaume Himahima finally stopped his tears, sat cross-legged on the ground, and spoke to Ubuyashiki. My children, I understand your excitement. I am just as moved as you are. Kagaya Ubuyashiki spoke softly after regaining his composure. I can see that besides your brave efforts, several children who are not currently in our ranks also played a key role. First, there is the demon named Tamayo. She played an indispensable role in the battle against Muzan. Kagaya Ubuyashiki looked at the Hashira before him. I understand that having a demon companion in the Demon Slayer Corps may be difficult for you to accept, but Lady Tamayo has proven that she can help us kill Muzan. Therefore, I hope you can also acknowledge them. I have no objection to Oyakata-sama's decision. Kyojuro Rengoku was the first to speak. Then, the others began to speak one after another. I flamboyantly agree, and will completely follow Oyakata-sama's wishes. Oyakata-sama, I believe this is inappropriate. The content in the light curtain may be a scene from some time in the future, but ultimately, we still don't know what this demon is like now. Furthermore, the video light curtain just now might be a demon's blood demon art, used to trick us into lowering our guard against this woman named Tamayo. Sanemi Shinazugawa lowered his head and spoke respectfully. Muzan would never create content that shows himself being killed, so this matter definitely cannot be under Muzan's orders. Sanemi, as for your concerns, I understand them very well. So what we need to do now is to temporarily make contact with Lady Tamayo and confirm the truth of the matter with our own eyes. Agreed. I have no objection either. Seeing everyone express their stance, Sanemi Shinazugawa didn't say anything more this time, tacitly accepting the point. Since no one has any objections, then the second matter is the young boy named Tanjiro Kamado. Kagaya Ubuyashiki looked down, When this boy was mentioned, the attitude of the Hashira was clearly much more peaceful. I will arrange for personnel to find the whereabouts of this boy as much as possible and, if there is still time, to protect his family. Looking at Tanjiro's eyes, Kagaya Ubuyashiki understood that those were the eyes of someone who had lost people important to them. If the tragedy hasn't happened yet, and if his family can be saved at this point in time, there will be one less child in the world suffering the painful loss of family. This would also serve to verify whether reality can be changed through the information from the light curtain. Eek! As they were speaking, everyone suddenly heard a girl's crisp cry of surprise. The moment Obanai Iguro heard this voice, his face turned completely red. He had already recognized the voice. It was the girl he had fallen in love with at first sight in the light curtain, Mitsuri Kanroji. Why would she appear here? The third person is Kyojiro's Suguko, Mitsuri Kanroji. Since she will also be here in the future, then I believe there is nothing wrong with having her come over now. Kagaya Ubuyashiki smiled. After all, this is a rare experience, is it not? The Hashira nodded, passing the decision unanimously. She was one of their own, Rengoku's Suguko, and a future comrade among the Hashira. What reason did they have to object? Oyakata-sama. Mitsuri Kanroji saw Oyakata-sama at the head and hurried to give a bow, then stole a glance at Kyojiro Rengoku. Rengoku-san. What's going on? Kyojiro Rengoku clearly hadn't received Mitsuri Kanroji's encrypted communication and gave her an encouraging smile. Mitsuri, now that you're here, please have a seat. Kagaya Ubuyashiki's attitude was very easygoing. Watch some things with us. Yes. Mitsuri Kanroji had noticed the light curtain in the center of the courtyard long ago but didn't dare to ask. Hearing Ubuyashiki's words, she hurried to sit beside Kyojiro Rengoku. Then, she began to secretly observe the Hashira around her. Wow! Everyone here is so beautiful. Amazing. Behind Mitsuri Kanroji, Obanai Iguro's peripheral vision was fixed on her the whole time. How wonderful. She looked even more cheerful and energetic than she did in the light curtain. Presumably, the first battle must have gotten everyone's blood pumping. The second battle, however, will cause everyone a mix of love and hate. He is loved by everyone for his explosive combat, but the passing of our most beloved one left so many of us in agonizing pain. Then next, please enjoy, our Big Brother vs Third Brother. Big Brother. Third Brother. What strange titles. Hearing that someone might die, Tsunemi Shinazugawa felt a bit irritable. Kagaya Ubuyashiki looked at Muichiro Tokito and Kyojiro Rengoku without a trace, finally settling his gaze on Kyojiro Rengoku. From the previous scenes, it could be simply judged that what was being played on the light curtain should be battle scenes between the Demon Slayer Corps and demons. Muichiro is the second son in his family. If the one sacrificed was truly one of the children present, then this voice from heaven must be referring to Kyojiro. The screen began to transition, the surrounding scene was dark, and everyone could only hear heavy breathing. Someone is injured, Kocho Shinobu said. To be able to judge to such an extent just through the sound of breathing. As expected of a Hashira. She's so cool, so calm. I love it. Kanroji looked at Kocho Shinobu like a little fangirl. Then, a cheerful owl-like head appeared in the light curtain. It seems you've already managed to achieve total concentration, constant. Not bad. Rengoku-san. Rengoku-san. Mitsuri Kanroji and the Tanjiro in the light curtain cried out in surprise simultaneously. She looked at the Kyojiro Rengoku in front of her with a face full of shock, then looked at the Kyojiro Rengoku in the light curtain. How can there be two Rengoku-sans? Calm down, Kanroji, this is no big deal. Kyojiro Rengoku replied with a voice full of vigor. But, Mitsuri Kanroji was still a bit hesitant. Based on our current judgment, what is being played on that light curtain should be scenes from the future. The person you see in the light curtain is very likely the future Rengoku. Not far away, Obanai Iguro took the opportunity to speak. So that's how it is. I'm sorry, I lost my composure. Mitsuri Kanroji turned red and said with her head lowered. It's all right, you just arrived, it's normal not to know. Kagaya Ubuyashiki said with a smile. Mitsuri Kanroji nodded sheepishly and stopped speaking. While everyone continued to watch the light curtain, she secretly glanced at Obanai Iguro. This gentleman is truly a good person. Brother, how did you get injured again? In the previous battle, before she could find out her brother's fate, it had jumped over here. Nezuko was already a bit worried. Then she saw that in the new battle, Tanjiro was lying on the ground looking wretched from the start. Maybe it's because I'm too weak. Tanjiro shook his head with a bitter smile. I don't want brother to get hurt anymore. Nezuko lowered her head. It's okay, I won't die that easily. Didn't you see, Nezuko? In the battle just now, the Muzan we fought was the leader of the demons. We've already defeated that almost invincible monster, so what else is there to worry about? Tanjiro tried to comfort Nezuko. Nezuko nodded. So brother, what kind of battle did you go through this time? Is the Demon Slayer Corps always this dangerous? Facing Nezuko's question, Tanjiro was at a loss for words. After all, fundamentally speaking, he was also just a bystander now. There's bleeding in your abdomen. Concentrate more, increase the precision of your breathing, extend your control to every corner of your body, and control that ruptured blood vessel. Listening to Kyojuro Rengoku's guidance, Tanjiro tried to sense that ruptured blood vessel. Listening to Kyojuro Rengoku's guidance, within the light curtain, Tanjiro tried to sense that ruptured blood vessel. Concentrate more. Kyojuro Rengoku tapped his finger on Tanjiro's forehead. After a moment, as if he had discovered something, he broke into a sunny smile. The bleeding has been stopped. By pushing the breathing styles to its limit, you can achieve all sorts of things. While it doesn't make you omnipotent, it will certainly make you stronger than you were yesterday. Tanjiro's talent is truly impressive. In just one try, he mastered the ability to stop bleeding using a breathing styles. Muichiro Tokido nodded in approval of Tanjiro, and Kyojuro Rengoku also showed a look of appreciation. One must give credit to talented young men. But thinking back to the battle with Muzan just now, Kyojuro Rengoku wore a somewhat lonely smile. The voice from heaven gave that kind of introduction, and now I've appeared in the light curtain, presumably, this will be my final resting place. But with a junior like this, I can die in peace. He had a clear understanding of his own condition, so he could easily see from the light curtain that he was currently in a state of exhaustion. Looking at myself, I'm afraid I just went through a fierce battle as well. I wonder if I fulfilled my duties as a Hashira before I died. Not far away, Kocho Shinobu glanced at Kyojuro Rengoku with a hint of pity. With the hint from the voice from heaven, it felt almost like watching a replay of Mr. Rengoku's death. Everyone on the train is fine. Although there are many injured, none are in life-threatening danger. Don't push yourself, get some rest. Thank you very much. Watching this heartwarming scene of instruction, Tsunemi Shinazugawa felt somewhat restless. Didn't a mission just end? Why is there still a battle? This light curtain must be wrong. Meanwhile, Kanroji Mitsuri was completely out of it. She stared at the Tanjiro in the light curtain. What a cute boy. He's so cute when he's working hard. He's also so cute when he's giving his sincere thanks. Who is this boy? Is he Mr. Rengoku's future Suguko? His talent seems very high. Wah. Then I have to work hard too. I can't lose to a junior. Perhaps danger lurks beneath this calm. Nemu Amida Butsu. Gyome Himahima said, lowering his head. Suddenly, a loud boom echoed through the quiet mountain forest. Immediately after, the entire mountain seemed to shake. Within the billowing smoke, a pair of golden eyes appeared. Who's there? Kyojuro Rengoku gripped his Nichiren sword, warily watching that direction, while Tanjiro also struggled to look that way. From the smoke, the owner of the golden eyes gradually revealed his full form. He had striking short pink hair and wore a simple dark purple short kimono with white Japanese-style tapered pants, revealing muscles full of power. His entire body was covered in deep blue tattoos, and engraved within his golden irises were three words that filled everyone with despair. Upper Moon 3. And now, he crouched there, silently watching Kyojuro Rengoku and Tanjiro. Upon seeing Kyojuro Rengoku's gaze turn toward him, a sinister smile played on the corners of Upper Moon 3's mouth. An upper moon. Mr. Rengoku has encountered an upper moon. Kanroji Mitsuri, who was still an ordinary member at this time, turned pale upon seeing an upper moon demon for the first time. Even through the screen, one could almost feel the oppressive pressure of Upper Moon 3. Can Mr. Rengoku really win against an opponent like this? What mission did Rengoku go on? How could he encounter an upper moon? Obanai Iguro's expression was grave. So that's how it is. No wonder the voice from heaven foretold Rengoku's death. At this time, that boy named Tanjiro was still a rookie who couldn't even use a breathing styles properly. There must still be a long time before the fight with Muzan. With their current abilities, facing an upper moon alone undoubtedly meant certain death. These fool demons. Tsunemi Shinazugawa gritted his teeth hard but continued to watch intently. There must be a way. He absolutely had to find Upper Moon 3's weakness. And then, in this current world, save Rengoku. The stalemate between the two sides did not last long. After staring at Kyojuro Rengoku for a few seconds, Upper Moon 3 narrowed his eyes and charged at Tanjiro with incredible speed, throwing a heavy punch at him. Flame breathing, second form. Rising scorching sun. Upper Moon 3 was forced back by Kyojuro Rengoku's attack, and the hand he used to attack Tanjiro was split down the middle. However, he waved his severed hand as if he didn't care at all, and then activated regeneration. In an instant, that hand returned to its original state. Having just witnessed Muzan's absurdly fast regeneration, the group didn't feel the same extreme pressure when facing Upper Moon 3. There was only one exception. Wow! Is this ridiculous regeneration speed for real? Kanroji Mitsuri was extremely shocked. This demon is such a cheat. He can regenerate at this speed, so how are we supposed to fight him? Nice sword. Upper Moon 3 licked off the blood remaining on his hand after it recovered. Why would you target an injured person first? I cannot understand. Kyojuro Rengoku held his sword, blocking the way in front of Tanjiro. I just thought he would interfere with our conversation. Seeing those weak humans makes me want to vomit. Upper Moon 3 said somewhat indifferently. What could I possibly have to say to you? Although this is our first meeting, I already dislike you. Our standards for judging things are vastly different. Kyojuro Rengoku looked coldly at Upper Moon 3. Regarding that, I have an excellent proposal. Upper Moon 3 looked at Kyojuro Rengoku, flashing a smile like a pyramid scheme salesman. Why don't you become a demon too? What is he saying? The members of the Demon Slayer Corps were all dazed, and then the anger in their chests began to spread. Almost every Hashira has a blood debt with the demons. For Upper Moon 3 to say such a thing only made them feel insulted. Kocho Shinobu could barely contain her expression of rage. Make a Hashira become a demon. How dare he? These demons all deserve to die. Sure enough, on the light curtain, Kyojuro Rengoku flatly refused him. Impossible. However, this Upper Moon 3 seemed unexpectedly talkative. Even after being rejected, he didn't show any dissatisfaction. He wasn't in a hurry to make a move either. Instead, he continued talking to himself. I can tell at a glance that you are strong. You're a Hashira, right? The battle spirit you possess has been refined to the point where it's close to the supreme territory. Kyojuro Rengoku was not swayed by the praise. I am the flame Hashira, Kyojuro Rengoku. I am Akaza. Akaza reached out his hand toward Kyojuro Rengoku. Akaza reached out his hand toward Kyojuro Rengoku. This demon is so familiar. After learning Mr. Rengoku's name, he started calling him Kyojuro. Mitsuri Kanroji stared blankly at what was happening on the light curtain. Beside her, Tsunemi Shinazugawa was already extremely impatient. What's with all the dawdling? What's the point of promoting such a twisted set of values? He wants a Hashira to be a demon. He can keep dreaming. Nearby, Kagaya Ubuyashiki noticed the inner thoughts of Tanjiro, who was struggling to crawl up. Among the demons he's met before, the scent of Muzan Kibutsuji on this one is the strongest. This child can actually smell Muzan's scent. Could it be that this child has seen Muzan? Or rather, can this child even track Muzan's trail? Kagaya Ubuyashiki suddenly realized that this young man was more important and had more outstanding abilities than he had imagined. What a miraculous child! On the light curtain, the debate between the two continued. So-called strength is not just a word used to describe the body. This boy is not weak. I won't allow you to insult him. I'll say it again. Our values are vastly different. No matter the reason, I will not become a demon. When he said this, the determination in Kyujuro Rengoku's eyes was frighteningly intense. Is that so? Akaza narrowed his eyes. Then, he reached out and took a step forward. Technique deployment. As his voice fell, a massive snowflake-shaped technique circle spread out from beneath his feet. He's making his move. Seeing Akaza's actions, the hearts of the Hashira leapt into their throats. This was the first upper-rank demon the Demon Slayer Corps had witnessed firsthand. Any information about him was worth careful study. Guillaume Himahima thought seriously. Wah! Is he really going to start? Mr. Rengoku will be okay, right? That's an upper rank. And that boy, he looks like he's suffered heavy injuries, can he still fight? Mitsuri Kanroji watched the content on the light curtain, her heart hanging in suspense. Since you won't become a demon, then I'll kill you. Akaza said this with that same seemingly innocent smile. Destructive death. Compass needle. Then, Akaza approached Kyujuro Rengoku at extreme speed and threw a punch. Flame breathing, first form. Unknowing fire. Kyujuro Rengoku's reaction was also very fast. After dodging Akaza's attack, he also swung his blade to slash at Akaza. After dodging Akaza's attack, he also swung his blade to slash at Akaza. Tanjiro lay on the ground, completely unable to participate, only able to look up. This fool demon can really fight. Even though he knew Akaza's name, Tsunemi Shinazugawa didn't want to call him that. What a flamboyant technique. Uzui Tengen sighed as he watched the two clash in the air. In terms of physical techniques alone, this upper-rank demon called Akaza is definitely the strongest I've ever seen. Presumably, before becoming a demon, he was also a martial arts fanatic. But behind these exquisite skills, how many lives have been lost? Unlike the others, as Kyujuro Rengoku watched the battle, he was seriously evaluating the gap between his strength in the light curtain and his current self. This way, he could easily estimate Akaza's strength. Up until now, I haven't killed a flame Hashira among the Hashira I've slain. Moreover, no one has accepted my invitation. While engaged in a fierce fight, Akaza chatted leisurely. It was as if the battle before him was not worth mentioning at all. Why is that? As a fellow seeker of the martial way, I truly cannot understand. Clearly, only the chosen ones can become demons. Akaza's viewpoint once again shocked everyone. He can actually call man-eating, murderous monsters, chosen ones. What does he think human life is? Kocho Shinobu clenched her fists, glaring at the smiling demon before her. In this demon's heart, there is no concept of good or evil. Indeed, demons are creatures that become more nauseating the more you interact with them. This Upper Moon 3, who knows how many people he's eaten to reach his current strength, and he's actually proud of it. Truly disgusting. Sure enough, on the light curtain, Kyujuro Rengoku was also enraged upon hearing this. While changing forms, Kyujuro Rengoku found an opportunity and sliced off Akaza's right arm. However, Akaza's arm regenerated instantly, and he quickly pulled back to a distance. What an excellent reaction speed. This outstanding swordsmanship will also disappear along with you. Kyujuro, aren't you sad? Destructive death. Air type. Words aside, Akaza's movements didn't slow down one bit. He threw a punch into the void, yet Kyujuro Rengoku felt waves of impact flying toward him. Flame breathing, fourth form. Blooming flame undulation. When he punches the void, he can still attack me, and the speed is extremely fast. If he keeps fighting at this distance, it won't be easy to cut his neck. Be careful. Mr. Rengoku. Mitsuri Kanroji watched all this nervously from outside the light curtain. This demon specializes in fist techniques. It's actually unwise for me to actively shorten the distance, but if I don't, I'll only be a passive target. I have no other choice. Kyujuro Rengoku reviewed the battle in the courtyard and reached nearly the same conclusion. Meanwhile, Obanai Iguro watched the battle and calculated in his mind. If I were there, how would the situation change? This demon's characteristic is exquisite physical techniques, and he doesn't seem to be serious yet. But if this demon is truly only at this level, even if we can't kill him, maintaining the status quo and dragging it out until dawn should be no problem. If someone else were there, there might be a chance to slay him right then and there. However, Obanai Iguro looked at Kyujuro Rengoku, who was sitting in the courtyard seriously studying the moves, and then at the version of him fighting hard on the light curtain. In this battle, he probably cannot count on any support. Tanjiro's home. These exquisite fist and sword techniques were lethal with every move. The exchange between them left the three people present dazzled. And just now, everything Kyojuro Rengoku said was deeply imprinted in Tanjiro's mind. Mr. Rengoku. Although they hadn't met yet, Tanjiro already felt a great deal of goodwill toward this firm-willed flame Hashira who had spoken up for him multiple times. Watching himself in the light curtain being ordered not to move by Mr. Rengoku because of his injuries, along with the boar-headed boy beside him, Tanjiro suddenly felt a bit of resentment. I was still too weak back then. I don't want to be left there. I really want to fight alongside Mr. Rengoku. I also want to stand with everyone, just like when fighting Muzan. Tanjiro, you've already done great. Kai watched everything on the light curtain silently, fully understanding what Tanjiro was thinking right now. I think you were just starting your training at this time. Human growth is always a process, you don't need to be too hard on yourself. Listening to Kai's words, Tanjiro nodded gently, but secretly made a decision in his heart. No matter what, after finishing the content on the light curtain, I must find the Demon Slayer Corps as soon as possible, bring them the information from the light curtain, and redouble my efforts in training. I must become someone who can stand by their side as soon as possible. Looking at Tanjiro's expression, Kai gave a bitter smile. However, she didn't say anything. After seeing the content in the light curtain, Tanjiro likely wouldn't stay at home in the future. He was destined to go there, carrying the Hinokami Kagura passed down to him by Tanjiro. Since that's the case, as his mother, all I can give my son is support and encouragement. Thinking this, Kai looked at Kyojuro Rengoku, who was fighting Akaza in the light curtain, with a trace of pity in her eyes. After all, they are just a group of children. Forget about the weaklings, Kyojuro. Give it your all and focus your attention on me. Seeing Kyojuro Rengoku talking to Tanjiro, Akaza showed a hint of impatience. So, he recalled Kyojuro Rengoku's attention with an even more violent attack. Nice moves. Boom. Kyojuro Rengoku was sent flying by Akaza. Become a demon, Kyojuro. Then, fight me infinitely and grow stronger together. You have the qualifications. Even now, Akaza was still trying his best to persuade him. Seeing Akaza's relaxed and leisurely manner, everyone felt a deep sense of helplessness. This upper-ranked demon. Isn't there any way? Tsunemi Shinazugawa clenched his fists. If I were also there, if I also joined the battle. I refuse. Let me say it again. I hate you, and I will never become a demon. As the smoke cleared, Kyojuro Rengoku was bleeding from his left eye, leaning on his sword, gasping for breath. However, he still stood up slowly and firmly, pointing his sword at Akaza once more. Blood kept dripping from the corners of his mouth and eye sockets, but he still kept his back straight. Don't die, Kyujiro. Looking at Kyojuro Rengoku's state, Akaza said with some concern. Hypocritical demon. If it weren't for you, how could Rengoku have been injured like this? Tsunemi Shinazugawa gripped the hilt of his sword, his anger almost becoming tangible. Mr. Rengoku. Kanroji Mitsuri looked at the injured Kyojuro Rengoku in the light curtain with concern, then turned her head to look at the Kyojuro Rengoku beside her, wanting to speak but not knowing how to start. Meanwhile, the Kyojuro Rengoku outside the light curtain was sitting upright, not swayed at all by his own injury, his eyes wide as he seriously analyzed Akaza's moves. Looking at him like this, Kanroji Mitsuri suddenly realized something, and her expression immediately softened. Yes, this is exactly who Mr. Rengoku is. Don't you understand? Continuing to attack is equivalent to self-destruction. No matter how painfully you fight, it's all for nothing. Akaza waved his hand, showing off his perfectly intact body. Look, the wounds your exquisite combat techniques left on me have completely healed. But what about you? Your left eye is ruined, your ribs are broken, and your internal organs are injured. You're beyond saving. If you were a demon, these injuries would heal in the blink of an eye. After all, for a demon, these are just scratches. No matter how they struggle, humans cannot defeat demons. What a joke. We not only defeated demons, but we also defeated Muzan. And you, a demon, were probably already in hell by then. Hearing this, Tsunemi Shinazugawa could no longer help but roar out loud. In the battle between humans and demons, humanity ultimately prevails. Truly an arrogant frog in a well. Obanai Iguro commented coldly from the side. Watching Akaza's actions and hearing his words, Kanroji Mitsuri suddenly had a thought. Could it be that this demon wants to use this method to prove the strength of demons, thereby making Mr. Rengoku agree to become one? This is really how naive, yet how cruel a method. In the distance, seeing this situation, Tanjiro clutched the wound on his abdomen and tried with difficulty to crawl up from the ground, but failed. I clearly want to help, but I have no strength. This always happens after using Hinokami Kagura. Gyome Himahima noticed this. Hinokami Kagura. Is that what sun breathing was called before? It seems Tanjiro hasn't mastered this breathing styles very well yet. Boom. Suddenly, flames seemed to ignite around Kyojuro Rengoku, and his overall aura surged up another notch, instantly attracting everyone's attention. He raised his sword and took a starting stance, his remaining eyes shining terrifyingly bright. I will fulfill my duty. I will not let anyone here die. After saying this, the aura around him surged once more. Seeing the change in Kyojuro Rengoku, Akaza instead became excited. Incredible, vast fighting spirit, incredible mental strength, a flawless stance. To have such spirit despite being so heavily injured, it's truly magnificent. As expected, you should just become a demon, Kyojuro. Fight with me forever. At this moment, no one cared what Akaza was saying anymore. In everyone's eyes, there was only that dazzling Kyojuro Rengoku, who seemed to be burning intensely. So flamboyant, incomparably flamboyant. At this moment, only that dazzling figure remained in everyone's eyes. This figure seemed to light a fire in everyone's hearts. Set your heart ablaze, go beyond your limits. I am the flame Hashira. Kyojuro Rengoku. Flame breathing, ninth form, profound truth. Rengoku. Destructive death. Annihilation type. Seeing Kyojuro Rengoku use a completely new move, Akaza didn't panic, instead, he charged forward excitedly. Boom. At the point of their clash, dust filled the air, obscuring everyone's vision. Will he win? Will Mr. Rengoku win? Kanroji Mitsuri watched the light curtain nervously. Meanwhile, Tsunemi Shinazugawa and the others stared intently at the light curtain, their expressions grim. As the dust gradually cleared, a scene appeared that was like hell to Tanjiro. Akaza's left arm had been severed, but his right arm was buried deep within Kyojuro Rengoku's chest. Cough, cough. Blood dripped continuously from Kyojuro Rengoku's lips. How can this be? Kanroji Mitsuri covered her mouth, her eyes instantly turning red. As a human, having suffered such an injury, Mr. Rengoku's life was now on a countdown. Why did this light curtain have to broadcast such cruel images? Why did Mr. Rengoku have to witness his own death with his own eyes? Tsunemi Shinazugawa clenched his fists, while Gyome Himehima lowered his head and wept. Unlike the battle with Muzan, seeing such a scene, seeing Kyojuro Rengoku facing an upper moon alone, gravely injured yet never forgetting to protect everyone, they were left speechless. Every Hashira present could calmly sacrifice themselves to protect their comrades, but none of them could accept watching a comrade die such a tragic and heroic death before their eyes. You're going to die. You're going to die, Kyojuro. Become a demon. Quickly, say you're willing to become a demon. Besides the roaring Tanjiro, the one who seemed most anxious was actually Akaza, who had dealt the blow. However, he was answered by a fierce slash from Kyojuro Rengoku. The blade sank into Akaza's neck. Sensing the threat, Akaza stopped holding back and swung his newly regenerated left hand toward Kyojuro Rengoku's face. However, this murderous punch was blocked by Kyojuro Rengoku. He gripped Akaza's left arm with a death grip. Did you see that? The sky is starting to brighten. Kocho Shinobu suddenly spoke. Kanroji Mitsuri's eyes were still filled with tears, but a glimmer of hope appeared in her gaze as she looked toward the sky. It's true. The horizon is turning white. Could they flamboyantly stall until sunrise and use the sun to kill this upper moon 3, just like they did with Muzan? Even though he knew the hope was slim, Uzui Tengen couldn't help but think so. Dawn was almost here. Akaza clearly realized this as well. However, when he tried to leave, he was shocked to find that both of his arms were pinned by Kyojuro Rengoku. Don't think you're escaping. Kyojuro Rengoku's face was covered in blood, but his hands were as heavy as 1,000 catties, gripping Akaza tightly to prevent him from leaving. I actually can't break free. Everyone heard Akaza's shocked and furious inner thoughts. Good job, Rengoku. Keep him trapped just like that. Tsunemi Shinazugawa's eyes were bloodshot, but he stood up and cheered loudly for Kyojuro Rengoku. What a flamboyant move. Rengoku has trapped him there quite flamboyantly. Uzui Tengen also shouted. Kyojuro Rengoku had originally felt some frustration at his own weakness upon seeing how difficult his battle was in the light curtain. But at this moment, seeing the actions of Tsunemi and the others, he suddenly felt a sense of peace. I am not alone. It is because I have these comrades by my side that I can slowly grow stronger and protect those I want to protect. Even if I die in battle, they will carry on with my will. I may be weak, but when our entire Demon Slayer Corps is together, we are incredibly powerful. As the two struggled, Tanjiro stumbled toward them from a distance, clutching his Nichiren sword. I must help Mr. Rengoku. Swing the blade. Sever the demon's head. Akaza's situation was not looking good. The sun is coming up. The sunlight will reach here. I must escape. Escape now. Get off me. Akaza's inner thoughts were bordering on a breakdown. However, no matter how he struggled, he couldn't shake off Kyojuro Rengoku. Kyojuro Rengoku stood there with the resolve to face certain death. Seeing the sun rising higher and Tanjiro and his companion approaching, Akaza finally stopped caring about anything else. Crack! He severed his own arms, ignored the blade in his neck, and fled in a panic into the dark woods. Fooled demon. Just like a lizard cutting off its tail to survive. Disgusting. Seeing Akaza force an escape under those circumstances, and then looking at the dying Kyojuro Rengoku, Obanai Iguro couldn't help but curse. Is this the only trick you demons have? Even if you didn't die here, I'll kill you sooner or later. You monster. Tsunemi Shinazugawa gripped his Nichiren sword tightly, watching Akaza's fleeing figure, yet feeling powerless. A pathetic loser. Muichiro Tokito commented. But no matter how unwilling they were, they all knew that this time, Akaza would not be staying. Tanjiro chased to the edge of the woods, but only saw Akaza's back. Facing Akaza's retreating figure, Tanjiro forced himself to use the Hinokami Kagura and threw his Nichiren sword. What a familiar scene. Namu Amida Butsu. Gyome Himahima immediately thought of Muzan from the previous battle, who had tried to flee but was pierced by Tanjiro. If only I had been there. It's a pity he wasn't kept there. Kyojuro Rengoku sighed as he watched Akaza being pierced by Tanjiro's Nichiren sword. You've done well enough, Kyojuro. Don't be too hard on yourself. Kagaya Ubuyashiki shook his head and spoke softly to Kyojuro Rengoku. Master, this has actually ignited my fighting spirit. Kyojuro Rengoku looked up, revealing his usual smile. I admit my skills were inferior, but I've recognized the gap between us. I will continue to train hard. When that day comes, I will have even greater strength and defeat him fair and square. Seeing Kyojuro Rengoku like this, Kagaya Ubuyashiki smiled slightly and said no more. This is the Kyojuro I know. Even if he falls, he will climb back up and never lose confidence. Shinjiro and Ruka truly raised a fine child. Gazing at Akaza, who had almost disappeared from sight, Tanjiro let out a furious roar. Don't you dare run, you coward. Mr. Rengoku is much more incredible than something like you. He's much stronger than you. The Demon Slayer Corps always fights in the dark of night where you have the advantage. We fight with our human bodies. When we're hurt, we don't heal easily. If we lose a limb, it cannot be reattached. Mr. Rengoku didn't lose. He didn't let anyone die. He fought to the very end. He protected everyone to the very end. You're the one who lost. Mr. Rengoku is the winner. The Kamado family home. Watching Akaza disappear into the woods, the Tanjiro outside the light curtain also wore an expression of helplessness. After witnessing such a tragic battle, the demon named Akaza had still managed to escape. Even Kai and Nezuko showed expressions of frustration. After working so hard and fighting for so long, how could it end like this? Nezuko's tears fell in large droplets, and this time, Tanjiro didn't even have the strength left to comfort her. At this moment, he felt a frantic empathy for his counterpart within the light curtain who could only wail in grief. Why was it that he could do nothing? Why, in this battle, could I only watch from a distance, wait, and witness this conclusion? If the current me possessed the strength shown just now, would Mr. Rengoku not have died? If I had even a little bit of combat power, would Akaza have failed to escape? If only. Inside and outside the light curtain, Tanjiro fell simultaneously into a vortex of sadness and regret. With reddened eyes, Kai pointed at the light curtain and spoke softly to Tanjiro. That child seems to have something he wants to say to you. Tanjiro looked up and saw Kyojuro Rengoku under the sunlight, wearing a smile of relief. Don't shout like that anymore. The wound in your abdomen will reopen, your injuries are very serious as well. Hearing these words, Tanjiro turned his head, tears still dripping continuously from his face. Kamado boy, if you die, then I lose. Come here, let's have a final few words. Listening to Kyojuro Rengoku's words, Tanjiro wiped his tears and walked to his side. Outside the light curtain, Tanjiro's expression was exactly the same as his self within the curtain. It was as if the words Kyojuro Rengoku was speaking now were being told to both of them at once. I remembered something. Go to my hometown, the Rengoku family. There are records left by previous Flame Hashira. The Hinokami Kagura you mentioned might be recorded there. Hearing the words spoken by himself within the light curtain, Kyojuro Rengoku suddenly looked up. Could it be that at this time, Kamado boy is still on the path of searching for information on the Hinokami Kagura? It was now known that the breathing the Kamado boy used was the original breathing styles, sun breathing. Was such a thing really recorded in his own home? No, I must go home personally and ask my father. If Kamado boy is to join the Demon Slayer Corps in the future, I must do my best to find the necessary things to reduce the time he spends searching. As they spoke, the sun shone over, and the arm Akaza had left stuck in Kyojuro Rengoku's body disappeared with the sunlight. Blood gradually wound its way down from his body, flowing onto his cape. Mr. Rengoku, stop talking. You can use breathing to stop the bleeding. Isn't there any way to treat the wound? Tanjiro was incredibly anxious, but Kyojuro Rengoku was unusually calm. No, I will die soon. I must finish what I have to say while I still can. Listening to Kyojuro Rengoku's final words left for his family, Nezuko could no longer hold back. She turned her head and looked at Tanjiro, her gaze exceptionally determined. Brother, I also want to learn the Hinokami Kagura. Can you teach me? What? Tanjiro was startled by Nezuko's words. No. Nezuko, I can't let you take such risks. Dangerous things are for me to handle. Tanjiro shook his head, refusing firmly. Brother, just as you won't be able to live a normal life in the future, I am the same. You worry about me, and I worry about you too. I can't let you go on adventures alone. Nezuko's voice grew louder. Tanjiro suddenly realized that his always gentle and smiling sister seemed to have changed. Teach me the Hinokami Kagura, and we can kill demons together. We'll look out for each other. I believe you will protect me, and I will protect you too. Hearing Nezuko's words, Tanjiro was momentarily speechless. However, at that moment, within the light curtain, Kyojuro Rengoku, having finished his last words, suddenly spoke again. Furthermore, Kamado boy, I believe in your sister. I saw her fighting a bloody battle in the train car to protect humans. Anyone who can risk their life to fight demons and protect humans, no matter what others may say, is a member of the Demon Slayer Corps. You must live on with your heads held high. Hearing this, Nezuko felt a sting in her nose, but she still looked at Tanjiro. See, brother. I'm going to the Demon Slayer Corps eventually. Even if I become a demon in the future, I'll be a member of the Demon Slayer Corps. I've already been acknowledged. So the more I know, the safer we will be in the future, right? Listening to Kyujiro's words in the light curtain and looking at his stubborn sister before him, Tanjiro was speechless for a moment. He turned to look at Kai, only to see her looking at him with a sorrowful gaze. Seeing Tanjiro's look, Kai forced a smile. Tanjiro, Nezuko, go and do what you want to do. Yes, after seeing such tragic battle scenes, whether it was me or Nezuko, mother would worry if we left home. But now that I know the future, I really can't just let things be. In just these 2 battles, too many people have helped me. Perhaps my information, perhaps my actions, can change everything that is about to happen and save them. How could I just stand by and watch? Tanjiro suddenly thought of something and looked at Nezuko. So Nezuko feels the same way as I do. Having witnessed the tragic side of the world and been helped by kind people, one wants to help others in turn. I only considered myself and didn't think about Nezuko's feelings. I really shouldn't have. Indeed, if Nezuko wants to go to the Demon Slayer Corps no matter what, then the more she knows, the safer she will be. Thinking this, Tanjiro finally made up his mind. Alright, Nezuko, I promise you. I will teach you the Hinokami Kagura. In the future, we will go to the Demon Slayer Corps together. We'll go together, and we'll come back together. Then, Tanjiro looked at Kai again. This time, his expression was full of trepidation and unease. Mom, we won't be gone for too long. Nezuko and I will protect ourselves. Once we kill that monster, we will come back. By then, we'll be able to live in a happy world without any worries or man-eating demons. Kai looked at her 2 children, her heart bleeding. Every one of these battles was so perilous, even if they knew the future, there was no way to guarantee they wouldn't be harmed. She didn't know what price they would have to pay to defeat Muzan. Forget it, as long as I am still here, they will always have a home. No matter what they become, I can take care of them. With these thoughts, Kai looked up and smiled at her 2 children. I'll wait for you to come home. The master's courtyard. Do not blame yourselves because I died here. As a Hashira, it is only natural that I am willing to be the shield for my juniors. I will never allow a demon to pluck the new sprouts. Kamado boy, boar-headed boy, yellow-haired boy, you must continue to grow. In the future, you will be the Hashira who support the Demon Slayer Corps. I believe in you. Watching Kyojuro Rengoku give his last words, the atmosphere in the courtyard was very silent. When Kyojuro Rengoku finally closed his eyes with a smile, the most emotional one, Mitsuri Kanroji, even burst into tears. Mr. Rengoku. Don't be sad. Am I not still standing right here now? Kyojuro Rengoku looked at Mitsuri Kanroji with a smile. In order to have greater strength when facing demons in the future, my training from now on will increase in intensity. You should be mentally prepared. Yes, Mr. Rengoku. Before her tears were even wiped dry, Mitsuri Kanroji replied reflexively. Looking at Kyojuro Rengoku and Mitsuri Kanroji, Kagaya Ubuyashiki smiled slightly. These were his children. With such children in the Demon Slayer Corps, he felt truly at ease. The second battle has ended. To optimize everyone's viewing experience, the bullet comment sharing function will now be enabled. Big Brother burned through the entire night only to fade away at dawn. This is a pain in the hearts of so many. Next, please enjoy the third battle, the Battle of Upper Rank 3 in the Infinity Castle. Bullet comment sharing. What is that? Hearing this new term, Mitsuri Kanroji looked up. This light curtain that could play the future was already amazing enough, so what was this, bullet chat, thing? Kocho Shinobu looked up and saw that after the voice from heaven finished speaking, a small gray circular button suddenly appeared at the bottom of the light curtain. What does that mean? Kocho Shinobu frowned. We'll know if we try it. Tsunemi Shinazugawa instantly arrived in front of the light curtain. He lightly touched the newly appeared circular button. There was no sensation, as if he were touching ordinary air. However, everyone saw the gray button turn green. It changed color. Muichiro Tokito said while staring at the button. Then, as the images appeared, a large amount of white text slowly moved from the right side of the light curtain onto the screen. Wah! Big Brother, I'm crying my eyes out. Big Brother was drained too much beforehand, otherwise, he definitely could have won. Everyone stand up and salute Big Brother. He saved everyone on the train. He saved every single person. He was the only one who died. Quick, 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 I want to see the next fight. Avenge Big Brother first. Sigh, although third brother is also quite tragic, just based on the fact that he killed Big Brother, he can't be redeemed in my eyes. Kyojuro Rengoku was stunned. Although he didn't know where these words were coming from, it seemed that in some unknown place, there were people grieving for him. I didn't do anything particularly extraordinary, I'm truly ashamed. Is this the bullet chats that the voice mentioned that day? Looking at the dense white text, Kagaya Ubuyashiki was somewhat shocked. Sigh, I saw a gender-swapped version of the Demon Slayer Corps on Douyin yesterday. If that were real, would Big Brother have survived? After all, Upper 3 doesn't hit women. This long bullet chat flashed by. Although there were still many incomprehensible terms, Kagaya Ubuyashiki suddenly noticed a piece of important information. Upper 3 doesn't hit women. This information was completely impossible to discern from the previous battle, yet this person stated it with such certainty. Could it be that they also possessed some information about the future? It seemed that not only the content within the light curtain, but also these suddenly appearing words, predicted the future to some extent. And these were much easier to record than the images. Kikuchi, record these words. Kagaya Ubuyashiki instructed softly. These words moved too quickly, it was almost impossible to see all the words while simultaneously watching the images. Kagaya was convinced that there must be hidden, useful information here. In a long corridor, Tanjiro and Giyu Tomioka are running. Is this the Infinity Castle from the first battle? Guillaume Himahima frowned. What? The first battle? Mitsuri Kanroji listened to Guillaume Himahima's words in a daze. What had she missed? We haven't encountered a single upper rank yet. Are we still too far from Muzan's sanctuary? Miss Shinobu, we still have everyone. We will definitely win this battle. Tanjiro's inner thoughts appeared on the light curtain. Hearing these thoughts, Kocho Shinobu felt something. It seems that I also died before this battle. And it probably wasn't long before. Did I die while fighting another upper rank? Thinking about Tanjiro and Gyu Tomioka being in the Infinity Castle and about to face Akaza, Kocho Shinobu pondered. Thump. Everyone heard a loud noise coming from the distance. Tanjiro and Gyu Tomioka clearly heard the sound as well, immediately stopping to investigate their surroundings. Mr. Gyu. What's with this vibration? Stop first, stay calm. Tanjiro's nostrils twitched, and he suddenly fixed his gaze on a spot on the ceiling. Someone is approaching. Above us. Tanjiro. Get back. Hearing Gyu Tomioka's shout, Tanjiro retreated rapidly. Just as he backed away, a person with pink hair smashed through the ceiling and landed in front of him. Give me back my big brother. Give me back my big brother. Give me back my big brother. Revenge time. A loud bang on the roof, and third brother makes a flashy entrance. Amnesiac third brother is trash. Memory restored third brother is a real man. Third brother, Muzan, just watch whether I throw the game or not. It seemed that when new changes or major turning points appeared in the images on the light curtain, these things called bullet chats would appear in clusters. Kagaya Ubuyashiki thought to himself as he looked at the massive number of bullet chats accompanying Akaza's appearance. However, two of the bullet chats made Kagaya Ubuyashiki quite concerned. Akaza lost his memory. What did he forget? Also, what did Muzan, just watch whether I throw the game or not, mean? The appearance of Muzan's name made Kagaya Ubuyashiki unconsciously think a bit more. Meanwhile, Sanemi Shinazugawa was somewhat dismissive of these bullet chats. A demon is a demon, why distinguish between good and bad? Any demon that has killed people should be exterminated, let alone an upper-rank demon who has killed countless people. These bullet chats are still too naive. Long time no see. For a weakling like you to have lived until now, it really hasn't been easy, Tanjiro Kamado. With a familiar smile, Akaza arrived before Tanjiro, but it caused Tanjiro to instantly flare up with rage. Akaza. Hinokami Kagura, fire wheel. Tanjiro slashed Akaza's arm with his blade. Akaza turned back, intending to launch an attack, but he didn't expect Tanjiro to exert power, not only dodging his attack but also cutting off his arm. After landing, Tanjiro was about to turn back and continue the attack when he saw Akaza's fist had already arrived. Hinokami Kagura, fake rainbow. Tanjiro once again dodged the attack in an extremely thrilling manner and left a scar on Akaza's face. Compared to the last battle, the Kamado boy has really become much stronger. Kyojuro Rengoku commented. He really has been training hard. A flamboyant dodge. A flamboyant strike. Putting these two battles together, one can completely feel Tanjiro Kamado's hard work. Uzui Tengen sighed with emotion. Stop talking so much nonsense and just cut off his head already. Where's Tomioka? Isn't he there too? With two people this time, this evil demon will surely be slain. Sanemi Shinazugawa spoke fiercely, but if one looked closely, it wasn't hard to see the redness at the corners of his eyes. Gyu Tomioka stood on the other side of the two, watching their instantaneous exchange. Tanjiro's combat techniques have become more exquisite than before, his current level has likely already reached that of a Hashira. That ignorant boy who once could only kneel in the snow in despair, weeping and begging me to spare his sister, has become so powerful in order to protect human lives and dignity from being taken by those demons again. Seeing Gyu Tomioka's inner thoughts, Obanai Iguro and Sanemi Shinazugawa even glanced at him in surprise. They had never seen Gyu Tomioka speak so many words. So Tomioka's inner drama was actually this substantial. Couldn't he speak properly in his mind? Or rather, does he only speak properly to this boy named Tanjiro? Thinking of Giyu Tomioka's usual behavior, the two looked at each other, their expressions a bit unsightly. At Tanjiro's home. Hearing Giyu Tomioka's inner thoughts, Tanjiro and the other two were stunned on the spot. In the snow, weeping and begging me to spare his sister. Sigh. My heart aches for Tanjiro. His family was killed, and his only remaining sister turned into a demon. It really hasn't been easy for him to get to this point. If Giyu hadn't come, Tanjiro would have been eaten by Nezu-chan. If it hadn't been Giyu who came, Nezuko would have been killed. One can only say that fate works in mysterious ways. Seeing the long bullet comments flashing above, Tanjiro instantly connected the clues. Everyone already knows that Nezuko will turn into a demon. And since the Demon Slayer Corps eliminates demons on sight, that must be why I pleaded with Mr. Giyu. As someone who had never known about demons, if I saw Nezuko turn into one, I definitely wouldn't have known how to control her. The bullet comments also said that if Mr. Giyu hadn't come, I would have been eaten by Nezuko. So, Mr. Giyu seeing me and Nezuko should be not long after the point when Nezuko turned into a demon. So, my family will encounter misfortune in winter. Which winter? Could it be this winter? Tanjiro turned back with a look of horror, meeting the equally horrified gazes of Nezuko and Kai. If that's really the case, we need to find another place to live before this winter arrives. Looking at his mother and sister, Tanjiro said with difficulty. Although making them leave this wooden house where they had always lived and which was full of memories was a hard decision, there was no other way if staying here meant losing their lives. After all, Tanjiro didn't think he could fight those demons in the light curtain with his current self. Where should they go? To the Demon Slayer Corps. If I go to the Demon Slayer Corps to train, will they protect my family? Thoughts kept popping up in Tanjiro's mind one after another. Kai was silent for a moment and then nodded. There's no other way. It's June now, and there's still some time before winter. During this time, I'll find a way to ask around for information. Looking at her uneasy son and daughter, Kai smiled. As long as our family is together, there will always be a way. She hugged Nezuko, who had been trembling ever since hearing that she almost killed her brother. There, Nezuko, it's not your fault. We will prevent all of this from happening. Tanjiro also held Nezuko's hand. Listening to her family's comfort, Nezuko smiled through her tears. This boy is not weak. I will not allow you to insult him. I now formally acknowledge those words of Kyojuro from before his death. You are indeed not a weak human. I am willing to pay my respects to you. After saying that, Akaza stepped forward with his right foot and assumed the classic starting stance of his blood demon art. Technique development. Akaza looked at the two in front of him who were waiting in full readiness and smirked. It's time for the banquet, let's begin. After saying that, the three fought together. For a moment, water breathing, Hinokami Kagura, and blood demon art intertwined on the field, looking flamboyant and magnificent. A water Hashira. Good timing. The last time I encountered a water Hashira was 50 years ago. Water breathing, 11th form. Dead calm. Wow. It's a new move I haven't seen before. The water Hashira I killed back then didn't use this move. While fighting, Akaza chatted with Giyu Tomioka. But unlike Kyojuro Rengoku, Giyu Tomioka remained silent from beginning to end. It wasn't a waste of time. Seeing Tanjiro able to go back and forth with Akaza alongside Giyu Tomioka in a real battle, Obanai Iguro offered a rare word of praise. He was finally no longer that boy who could only watch and cry from the side. If there are two of them, even if they can't kill him, they can at least fight on equal terms. After observing for a while and seeing Giyu Tomioka save Tanjiro several times, Shinobu Kocho commented. He hasn't gotten serious yet. Gyome Himehima spoke. Sure enough, just as Gyome Himehima finished speaking, the situation of the battle changed again. Tanjiro attacked Akaza's ankle with his blade, but Akaza struck back as he turned. Although Tanjiro barely blocked it, blood still flowed from his nose. Gyu Tomioka stood in front of Tanjiro and began fighting Akaza again. Just being grazed once, and the power is this great. This Upper Moon 3's martial arts are truly terrifying. Muichiro Tokito remarked. Flowing like water. These sword techniques, honed through thousands of trials, are truly wonderful. The more they fought, the more excited Akaza's expression became. What is your name? Quickly, tell me your name, I want to remember it. I have no name to give to a demon. Furthermore, I hate talking, don't keep trying to strike up a conversation with me. The enthusiastic Akaza received a cold reply from Gyu Tomioka. That's the end of part 1. Part 2 is coming soon.
Thanks for watching. Please subscribe and support our channel for more stories.